Chapter 4899. Of course, the relationship between Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin was very pure. It was as pure as the snow in spring. Lin Feng looked at the layout of the courtyard. The design was not bad, and the spiritual energy was 10 times denser than outside. It was a good place to cultivate. What do you think of this place, young master? Shui Yuexin asked. Lin Feng nodded. The design is not bad. Shui Yuexin smiled. As long as young master likes it. Shui Yuexin continued. Tomorrow there will be a monk from the Western Heaven region. It is said that he brought some good stuff from the depths of the Western Heaven region. I wonder if young master is interested in taking a look. Oh, good stuff from the Western Heaven region? What kind of good stuff is it? Lin Feng asked curiously. It is said that there is Buddhist resin, some ancient Buddhist scriptures, Buddhist treasures, relics, and other Buddhist treasures. These things can drive away evil spirits and ghosts. They are very useful to us. In addition, it is said that there is a sacred ancestor Buddha stone. It is said that the sacred ancestor Buddha stone has fused with the blood of Buddha and contains the supreme Tao. It is unknown if the rumors are true. Shui Yuexin said. Lin Feng asked, That monk is selling these things. Why do I feel that he is not a monk? Instead, it seems like he went to the Western Heaven region and looted many treasures. Thus, he is here to sell them. Shui Yuexin said softly, Young master, there are many types of monks in the Western Heaven region. Some of them are devoted to Buddhism and meditate on the Tao every day. They are compassionate. However, there is also a group of monks who have demons residing in their hearts. They hide in the Western Heaven region for the sake of wealth. They are usually very secretive and will not be discovered. As for the things they sell, they will not sell them in the Western Heaven region. They will often sell them in other regions. The orthodox monks of the Western Heaven region rarely leave the Western Heaven region. Thus, they can sell those things without worry. After exchanging them for the things they need, they will return to the Western Heaven region and wait for the opportunity to strike again. Lin Feng smiled bitterly and said, I thought that the Western Heaven region was a Buddhist holy land, a pure land of Buddhism. But who would have thought that the Western Heaven region would have so many dirty things? Shui Yuexin said, That's right, but this kind of thing, let's talk about it in private. Don't talk about it outside. Those evil monks of the Western Heaven region have extremely terrifying strength. If they know that someone is gossiping behind their back, they will offend those evil monks and evil monks. If you offend those guys, then you will be in trouble. I presume that young master has some understanding of Buddhist sex inheritance and divine ability. Therefore, if you can avoid offending Buddhist sex monks, you should try your best not to offend them. Lin Feng nodded. He agreed with Shui Yuexin's words. The methods of Buddhism were indeed strange and terrifying. For example, the great karma art, great purification art, great destiny art, and other 3,000 great Tao that Lin Feng was currently learning were actually the foundations of Buddhism. However, Lin Feng's use of these 3,000 great Tao was actually far inferior to Buddhist sex cultivators. For example, the old monk that Lin Feng rescued from the Great Bone Hall had once used a divine ability called karma retribution. After this divine ability was used, the evil spirit warrior instantly died. However, this was not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was that the old monk's lifespan was crazily increasing. Karma retribution was a divine ability that the old monk had comprehended from the great karma art. Obviously, the Buddhist sect had comprehended more than one or a few divine abilities from the 3,000 great Taos. Many of the divine abilities were extremely strange. Therefore, this was also the reason why one could not offend the Buddhist sect. Since the Buddhist sect was so powerful, offending the Buddhist sect would definitely not end well. Shui Yuexin smiled and said, "It's getting late. Young master has just arrived at the Western Heaven City and must be very tired. Then, I won't disturb young master's rest." "Okay, I'll see you out," Lin Feng said. After seeing Shui Yuexin out, he immediately returned to his residence. Lin Feng rested well for a day. Next, he waited for Yun Tianyou's arrival. Lin Feng also knew that this matter could not be rushed. There was no point in being anxious. On this day, Shui Yuexin arrived at Lin Feng's residence. Shui Yuexin was as beautiful as ever. Her beauty was a kind of beauty that emanated from her bones. That kind of charming temperament could make one's heart palpitate. "Young master, that evil monk has arrived. Let's set off now," Shui Yuexin said. "I'll have to trouble Fairy to come here personally." Lin Feng cupped his fists and said, "He. Young master, please don't stand on ceremony," Shui Yuexin said in a charming manner. She came in a beast carriage. Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin boarded the carriage together. In the narrow space, Lin Feng could smell the alluring fragrance coming from Shui Yuexin's body. Shui Yuexin smiled and asked, "Is there something that interests young master?" Of course, Lin Feng nodded and said, "I'm very interested in Buddha resin, especially high-quality ones. I wonder what the quality of the Buddha resin brought by that monk will be like." Shui Yuexin said, "You can find all kinds of Buddha resin. However, young master should know that Buddha resin is a rare thing. Moreover, very few people dare to refine it. After all, this is something that offends Buddhism. Therefore, the price of Buddha resin will be very high. Moreover, the competition will be very fierce." Lin Feng smiled and said, "Of course, I've already prepared myself for this." Shui Yuexin said, "Aside from Buddha resin, what else is young master interested in?" Lin Feng said, "I'm also very interested in the sacred ancestor Buddha stone that has been infused with Buddha's blood." Shui Yuexin said with a wry smile, "Young master, the things you want are all very valuable. However, with your wealth, you should be able to participate in the competition." 2 hours later, the carriage arrived at its destination. It was a huge courtyard in the black market. Someone led Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin to a hall in the depths. There were many cultivators gathered there. In the middle of the hall was a huge stage. On it, there were dozens of beautiful women dancing coquettishly. Their movements were very sexy and seductive. Many cultivators cheered from time to time. "What is this place?" Lin Feng asked. "This is the largest and most high-end trading place in the black market. There are many things that can't be found in the outside world. Young master, look at those charming dancers on the stage. Not only are they rare cultivation furnaces, but they are also specially trained to serve men. If young master is interested, you can buy a few dancers back." Chapter 4900. Lin Feng shook his head and said, "I'm not interested in them, but you can buy a few of them and make them your personal maidservants. It's not bad." Shui Yuexin suddenly said, "I don't have such a good life." Lin Feng said, "How can that be? You're a peerless beauty. You're destined to be above others." Shui Yuexin could only smile bitterly. Only she knew how difficult it was for a woman to work hard outside. But there were some words that she could not say to Lin Feng. After all, she and Lin Feng were not lovers. So, Shui Yuexin did not continue to talk about this topic. When they arrived at the hall on the second floor, Lin Feng saw that there were many auction stages. On each stage, there was a cage. In those cages, there were women, children, old people, and children. But no matter what kind of people they were not ordinary people. Those auctioned are all slaves. Some of the slaves' cultivation is very strong. So this kind of small auction is very popular among cultivators. It's a good choice to buy some powerful slaves as guards. As for the children, most of them have strong bloodlines and are worth training. If they are trained well, their cultivation will not be weak. Those children will usually be trained to be death warriors. As for those women, they are all beautiful. They are different from the women who are trained below. They will have a strong resistance to those who buy them. Some people are more perverted and like these women who resist them, said Shui Yuxian to Lin Feng. She was very familiar with the situation on the stages. She was already used to this kind of thing, so she was not surprised. Lin Feng could not do anything about this kind of thing. His ability was limited, and he could not save everyone from the sea of suffering. Soon, Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin came to the third floor. When they arrived, Shui Yuexin met an acquaintance. The other party told Shui Yuexin that the monk was busy now, so they needed to wait for a while. This is really Buddhism's misfortune. Shui Yuexin's friend went to the second floor, and Shui Yuexin couldn't help but mutter. Lin Feng roughly knew what the monk was doing at this moment. Lin Feng was also a little speechless, but this was other people's business, so he couldn't say much. The third floor was very large, and there were many counters. On those counters, there was a dazzling array of treasures. Many of the treasures were incomparably precious. Therefore, there were quite a few cultivators here. Let's walk around, Shui Yuexin said to Lin Feng. Lin Feng naturally had no objections. He and Shui Yuexin strolled around on the third floor. Lin Feng even saw immortal equipment among the dazzling goods. As expected of the black market, anything could be found here, but the prerequisite was that you had to be able to afford it. The items here were also extremely expensive. For example, an immortal equipment cost about 30 million immortal stones. This was not a small number. Of course, it was nothing to Lin Feng, but to others, it was definitely an astronomical figure. Even the direct descendants of the top forces would not be able to take out so many immortal stones. Shui Yuexin stopped in front of a counter, looked at the shop assistant, and said, "Give me that black gold sword." The shop assistant took out a treasured sword. The treasured sword was about 1 meter long, 10 centimeters wide, and 3 centimeters thick. This treasured sword gave off a cold aura. Shui Yuexin obviously liked this treasured sword. She held it in her hand as if she couldn't bear to part with it. This seems to be a damaged treasured sword. Lin Feng looked at the black gold sword and said. Shui Yuexin nodded and said, "Yes, it was originally an immortal equipment. However, because the immortal patterns on it were damaged, it became damaged and could not unleash the power of an immortal equipment. However, this treasured sword can still be repaired into an immortal equipment." Lin Feng said, "If it is repaired into an immortal equipment, its power will be greatly reduced." Shui Yuexin said, "Although that is the case, it can still unleash the power of an immortal equipment. It is still very powerful. However, the price of this damaged black gold sword is as high as 10 million immortal stones." Lin Feng guessed that Shui Yuexin was probably saving money. She obviously wanted to buy the black gold sword, but she did not have enough immortal stones to save up. Thinking about it, she was only an elder of the Bai Shao Pavilion. Although her monthly income was not bad, she needed a large amount of resources for her own cultivation. These resources were all bought with immortal stones. Therefore, the amount of immortal stones she could save every month was not that much. If she had brothers and sisters, she might have to take care of the cultivation resources that her brothers and sisters needed for their cultivation. This made it even harder for her to save up immortal stones. Shui Yuexin might not have met many wealthy customers like Lin Feng in her entire life. Saving up 10 million immortal stones was indeed too difficult. This was like asking a white-collar worker to save up 10 million immortal stones in modern society. Was it not as difficult as ascending to the heavens? Isn't this Shui Yuexin? What a coincidence! I didn't expect to meet you here. At this moment, a sharp voice was heard. Lin Feng turned around and saw a man and a woman walking over. The one who spoke was the woman. The woman was tall and slender, and she was quite pretty. However, she wore heavy makeup and had a sharp and unkind look on her face. She was holding the hand of a cultivator who looked to be in his 30s. That cultivator only looked like he was in his 30s, but in reality, he had been cultivating for God knows how many years. After seeing the woman, Shui Yuexin's pretty face turned ugly. The woman with heavy makeup quickly walked over while holding the hand of the male cultivator. She looked at Shui Yuexin with a haughty attitude and said, "You've also taken a fancy to this black gold sword? Ayaya, this is an immortal weapon. Although it's damaged, it can still be repaired. It's really a good item. However, this black gold sword is worth 10 million immortal stones. Can you afford it?" Shui Yuexin's face turned ugly, but she did not say anything. She put the black gold sword back into the box and pulled Lin Feng, wanting to leave with him. "You're leaving just like that? Could it be that this person in front of you is your lover? Shui Yuexin has taken a fancy to this black gold sword. Aren't you going to buy it for her?" said the woman with heavy makeup while looking at Lin Feng with a smile, yet not a smile. Lin Feng stood there and did not leave. He said indifferently, "I see that you also want to buy it. If you want to buy it, I'll let you have this black gold sword." Chapter 49:01. Li Xiaolu, don't go too far. Shui Yuexin looked at the woman with heavy makeup with an ugly expression. This woman with heavy makeup had joined the Baishao Pavilion with Shui Yuexin back then. However, her business ability was much worse than Shui Yuexin's. In addition, her figure, appearance, etc. could not be compared to Shui Yuexin. Therefore, she had always been very jealous of Shui Yuexin. Later on, she wanted to scheme against Shui Yuexin and make the Baishao Pavilion expel Shui Yuexin. Therefore, she stole a part of the important information that she and Shui Yuexin had kept together. Then, she slandered Shui Yuexin for stealing the Baishao Pavilion's information and selling it. During that period of time, Shui Yuexin's cultivation had reached a critical point and needed a large amount of immortal stones. Moreover, Shui Yuexin's younger brother had injured a vice sect master's grandson in the sect. Therefore, she needed a large amount of immortal stones to settle this matter. Therefore, Shui Yuexin needed money, and Li Xiaolu chose the right time. Shui Yuexin had sufficient reason to commit the crime. Anyone would suspect that Shui Yuexin did this. Fortunately, the pavilion master of the Baishao Pavilion in the little western paradise city was very wise. He did not listen to Li Xiaolu's words and secretly investigated this matter. He found that Shui Yuexin was slandered, and the main culprit was Li Xiaolu. Li Xiaolu was clearly a thief crying thief. Therefore, she was expelled from the Baishao Pavilion. Later on, Li Xiaolu hooked up with a young master of the Sikong clan in the little western paradise city. It was this cultivator in front of them. The Sikong clan was a top clan in the little western paradise city. This young master was called Sikong Maobai. He was talented and came from a good family. Therefore, he was very rich. Li Xiaolu was not a proper woman. Before she met Sikong Maobai, she was already a veteran in love. Therefore, she was very good at pleasing Sikong Maobai. Later on, when Li Xiaolu saw Shui Yuexin, she would show off in front of Shui Yuexin. Mainly, she wanted to humiliate Shui Yuexin. Now that she saw Shui Yuexin here, she naturally wanted to humiliate Shui Yuexin. Even Lin Feng, who was with Shui Yuxian, had been humiliated. Li Xiaolu looked at the angry Shui Yuexin with a condescending attitude and said, "A pauper will always be a pauper. This is a very high-end place, but you're making a big fuss here. You really have no manners. I'll have to talk to the boss here in the future. People with low status like you can't be allowed in. You'll disturb us, the real guests." You. Being humiliated by Li Xiaolu, Shui Yuexin was so angry that her face turned green. She pointed at Li Xiaolu and said, "You've been mumbling for a long time." But she didn't know how to refute Li Xiaolu. "This world is very cruel. If you don't have money, you will be looked down upon wherever you go. Don't you. I don't even want to talk to a lowly person like you. That's simply a disgrace to my status." Li Xiaolu had an arrogant look on her face as she turned to look at Sikong Mabai. She said coquettishly, "Young master, you said that you'll buy that black gold sword for me. You're a man, so you must keep your word, right?" Li Xiaolu said as she hugged Sikong Mabai's arm and swung it back and forth. Her coquettish voice was so coquettish that it made one want to vomit. "You little slut! When have I ever lied to you?" Sikong Mabai laughed loudly. After hearing Sikong Mabai's words, Li Xiaolu immediately became excited and looked at Shui Yuexin with a smug look. Sikong Mabai said, "Wrap up the black gold sword. This young master wants it." "All right, young Master Sikong." At this moment, the elder in charge of the business on this floor came over and said, this elder was called Gong Sun Qing, a middle-aged cultivator in the prime of his life. He had a square face and a smooth and slick appearance. Gong Sun Qing quickly ordered the staff to wrap up the black gold sword. After that, Sikong Mabai took out 10 million immortal stones and handed it to Gong Sun Qing. "Young master, let's go," Shui Yuexin said softly. She didn't want to stay in this place where she had been humiliated. "There's no hurry," Lin Feng said. Lin Feng pointed at a jade hairpin on the counter and asked, "What's so special about that jade hairpin?" Although Gong Sun Qing didn't think that Lin Feng could buy that jade hairpin, he was a shrewd person and knew that he couldn't afford to offend people when doing business. Therefore, he continued to introduce the hairpin to Lin Feng with a smile. This jade hairpin is made from immortal mother jade that has been formed for tens of millions of years. It's an immortal-grade defensive treasure. Young master, you should know that immortal-grade defensive treasures are more expensive than offensive treasures. Therefore, this jade hairpin is worth 40 million immortal stones. What about the 3 small swords in the box? Lin Feng continued asking. These 3 small swords are called the Qiankuan Immortal Swords. It's said that they are a combination type, immortal-grade weapon, forged by the Qiankuan Holy Emperor. Once the 3 swords are activated, they can resonate with each other and become extremely powerful. This combination type, immortal-grade sword set, is worth 100 million immortal stones. Gong Sun Qing continued. Shui Yuexin, Li Xiaolu, and Sikong Mabai couldn't help but gasp when they heard the price. 100 million immortal stones. What an astronomical figure. Even though Sikong Mabai came from a large family, he could only use about 30 million immortal stones. 30 million immortal stones could only buy an ordinary immortal-grade weapon. You can't afford it. Why are you asking so many questions? Elder Gongsun, why do you have to pay attention to these lowly paupers? You're just wasting your breath. Li Xiaolu looked at Lin Feng with a mocking expression. Sikong Mabai said, as a person, you should know your place. Don't do things that will only bring shame to yourself. Clearly, Sikong Mabai was mocking Lin Feng. Gong Sun Qing couldn't help but smile bitterly. In his opinion, Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin had indeed brought shame to themselves by offending Li Xiaolu and Sikong Mabai. Lin Feng ignored the 2 of them, Instead, he flicked his finger. In an instant, 14 rivers of immortal stones flew out. Each river was made up of 10 million immortal stones. The rivers of immortal stones emitted extremely dense immortal chi. Everyone in the shop couldn't help but look over. When they saw the 140 million immortal stones, they couldn't help but be shocked. Many of them had never seen so many immortal stones in their entire lives. Lin Feng said indifferently, "I want that jade hairpin and the 3 immortal swords." "Ah, young master wants them? Young master, you really want them?" Gongsun Qing asked in disbelief. These 2 sets of immortal-grade weapons had been here for thousands of years, and no one had bought them. Moreover, immortal-grade treasures were very difficult to sell, especially when they were worth 140 million immortal stones. Chapter 49:02. Oh my God! Who is that young master? How could he be so rich? This young master looks unfamiliar. He should be a foreign cultivator, right? He casually took out 140 million immortal stones. He's really rich. His family must have a few thousand immortal mines, right? Just now, Li Xiaolu and Sikong Maobai actually looked down on that young master. Now, I know that they are just clowns in front of that young master. Compared to that young master, they are simply paupers. That young master didn't even care about their provocation. I originally thought that young master didn't have much confidence. Now I know that young master doesn't even care to do that. Who is that young master? He can't be bothered to argue with people like Li Xiaolu and Sikong Maobai. They don't deserve it. At this moment, the surrounding cultivators also started discussing. Everyone was guessing Lin Feng's identity and was extremely curious about Lin Feng, especially many beautiful female cultivators. When they saw a young, handsome, and rich young master like Lin Feng, they couldn't wait to use their charming techniques to charm Lin Feng. If Lin Feng curled his finger, a large group of female cultivators would definitely throw themselves at him. As for Li Xiaolu and Sikong Maobai, their faces alternated between red and white. There was no need for Lin Feng to humiliate them. The discussions of the surrounding cultivators made them want to vomit blood. The 2 of them felt that the surrounding cultivators were looking at them with ridicule and disdain. What was a slap in the face? A real slap in the face didn't require the other party to do it personally. The surrounding cultivators' discussion was like a slap to their faces. Shui Yuexin was also shocked. She knew that Lin Feng was generous, but she didn't expect Lin Feng to be so rich. 140 million immortal stones. He took it out so casually. He didn't even frown. It was really unbelievable. Lin Feng looked at Gongsun Qing and said, "I've already taken out the immortal stones. Do you think I'll lie to you? Quickly wrap up the 2 sets of immortal artifacts for me." At this moment, Gongsun Qing also recovered from his deep shock. He quickly apologized and said, Sorry. I was rude just now. Please forgive me, young master." Lin Feng waved his hand, indicating that he didn't care. Gongsun Qing took 140 million immortal stones. He was so happy that his heart was about to bloom. As the person in charge of the 2 sets of the immortal artifacts, he could get 1% commission. That was a commission of 1. For million immortal stones, he could wake up from his dreams. Gongsun Qing wrapped the 2 celestial weapons and handed them to Lin Feng. Said Lin Feng indifferently, "It's not for me, it's for you Xin Celestial." "What? For the water fairy?" Gongsun Qing's 140 million immortal stones for 2 sets of immortal artifacts. Gongsun Qing felt that he was in a complete mess. The surrounding cultivators who were watching the show also felt that they were in a complete mess. Li Xiaolu and Sikong Maobai also felt their minds go blank. those were 2 sets of immortal artifacts worth 140 million immortal stones. It was too extravagant for them to use. They were given away so casually. What was going on? Shui Yuexin's pink lips opened slightly. She was extremely shocked because she didn't expect. Lin Feng gave the 2 sets of immortal artifacts to her. However, Shui Yuexin quickly regained her senses. Li Xiaolu and Sikong Maobai thought that Lin Feng was her man. So when they humiliated her, they also humiliated Lin Feng. Lin Feng was probably trying to humiliate them on purpose. It was a good chance to give her some face. The 2 sets of immortal artifacts were just temporarily kept by her. Thinking of this, Shui Yuexin felt relieved, but she was still a little disappointed. How great would it be if Lin Feng was really her man? But this was just a wishful thinking. A man like Lin Feng, what kind of woman didn't he have? How could he be interested in her? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and give the 2 sets of immortal artifacts to Fairy Yuexin. Lin Feng looked at Gong Sun Qing and said. Gong Sun Qing recovered and knew that he had lost his composure. He was considered a person who had seen the world, but today was the first time he saw such a situation. It was no wonder that he was a little distracted. Gong Sun Qing recovered and handed the 2 sets of immortal artifacts to Shui Yuexin. Then he said, Fairy Shui, these are your immortal artifacts. Thank you. Shui Yuexin took the immortal artifacts and said, You flatter me, you flatter me. Fairy, please don't flatter me, said Gong Sun Qing hastily. He knew that if Shui Yuexin and Lin Feng got together, she would become a phoenix. Life was precious. Shui Yuexin is really lucky to have found such a man. Yeah, she's going to be rich. Many cultivators discussed. This Shui Yuexin isn't that pretty. She's not even as pretty as me. How did she find such a good man? Shui Yuexin is a vixen. She must have used some seductive techniques to seduce that young master. Some female cultivators started discussing. They were purely jealous of Shui Yuexin because it was rare to see a woman as beautiful and charming as Shui Yuexin. Let's go. Li Xiaolu tugged at Sikong Maobai's clothes and said she originally wanted to humiliate Shui Yuexin. Who would have thought that? In the end, she was humiliated by Shui Yuexin. She thought about how many times she had begged Sikong Maobai to buy the incomplete immortal artifact. She even used all sorts of tricks to please Sikong Maobai. She finally got Sikong Maobai to agree to buy the sword for her. But what about Shui Yuexin? She didn't even ask for the 2 sets of immortal artifacts. Shui Yuexin's man bought the 2 immortal artifacts for her. Li Xiaolu was so jealous of Shui Yuexin that she was about to die. Sikong Maobai's expression was extremely ugly. He couldn't stay in this place any longer. He could imagine that the news would spread very soon. By then, he would become the laughingstock of many people. Thinking of this, Sikong Maobai developed a deep hatred for Lin Feng. He glanced at Lin Feng in an ice-cold way and immediately left with Li Xiaolu. Lin Feng looked at Shui Yuexin and said with a smile, Let's walk around and see if there's anything good. Chapter 49:03. The surrounding cultivators also dispersed, but many of them were still discussing what had just happened. At this moment, a beautiful female cultivator with a seductive figure walked over. It was unknown if it was intentional, but when she walked to Lin Feng's side, she accidentally sprained her ankle and fell towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng, on the other hand, leaned to the side. The female cultivator instantly fell to the ground. He did not even look at the female cultivator as he walked around her and continued to walk forward. The female cultivator looked at Lin Feng with an aggrieved gaze. Uft! Shui Yuexin could not help but laugh. One had to admit that this woman was beautiful to begin with, but when she laughed, she looked even better. She was simply too mesmerizing. Lin Feng could feel his heart beating slightly faster. To Lin Feng, beautiful women were not enough to attract him. Sometimes he needed a feeling or a factor that could make his heart beat faster. What are you laughing at? Lin Feng looked at Shui Yuexin and asked. She clearly wanted to throw herself into your arms. You should have taken the initiative to support her just now. Then, the two of you could have started a relationship. Shui Yuexin said. Perhaps it was because she was from the demon clan, but she was more daring in her words. Lin Feng said, Fairy, do you really think that I'm the kind of person who can't lift my legs when I see a beautiful woman? Shui Yuexin said, Of course not. You're a gentleman and a good person. You know how to be considerate and care for others. Thank you for your help just now. When we return, I'll return the 2 sets of immortal equipment to you. Lin Feng said, Those 2 sets of immortal equipment are for you. Ah, for me? Didn't you ask me to keep them temporarily? Shui Yuexin's charming face was filled with disbelief. Lin Feng said, You're overthinking it. I said I'll give them to you, so I'll give them to you. After hearing Lin Feng's words, Shui Yuexin's heart could not help but be in a complete mess. Immortal equipment worth 140 million immortal stones. That was a sky-high price. He didn't know if he would be able to earn that many immortal stones in his lifetime. Lin Feng had casually given it to him. Why did he give such a valuable gift to her? Could it be? Did she fall for him? Thinking of this, Shui Yuexin felt her heartbeat quicken. What kind of woman couldn't he get? Would she like him? However, Shui Yuexin started to doubt herself again. She was not confident enough. I'm not bad looking, right? And her figure is not bad, right? Young master taking a liking to me isn't something unbelievable, right? Soon, another voice sounded in Shui Yuexin's heart. At that very moment, Shui Yuexin was having a battle in her heart. One moment it was self-affirmation, and the next moment it was self-denial. Lin Feng didn't know what Lin Feng was thinking about, but he didn't think too much about it. As for the previous matter, he didn't put it in his heart. What's done is done. Lin Feng naturally didn't care about 2 insignificant characters. There were many treasures here, but Lin Feng wasn't interested in many of them. After taking a stroll outside, Gong Sun Qing came to Lin Feng's side and said respectfully, Young master, my master would like to invite you for a cup of spirit tea. Do you have time? Lin Feng had nothing to do, so he agreed. He and Shui Yuexin followed Gong Sun Qing to the 4th floor. When they reached the 4th floor, Gong Sun Qing led Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin to a VIP lounge. When he arrived, he found that there was only a young woman in a pink dress here. This young woman's figure was plump and charming, but her face looked very pure. Judging from her dressing, could it be that a woman of her age still had the heart of a young girl? There was a saying that one could tell a person's character from the way they dressed. Lin Feng felt that this saying was very suitable for the woman in front of him. She wasn't a teenage girl, but she dressed even more girly than a teenage girl. Either she had the heart of a young girl, or she liked to pretend to be pure. Lin Feng leaned towards the latter. Of course, he wouldn't say that out loud. I'm Lu Shaoqing. Greetings, young master. The young woman came to Lin Feng's side and bowed to Lin Feng. Her voice was sweet and seductive. There's no need to be so courteous. Lin Feng said. The young woman stood up and invited Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin to take a seat. She then asked, How should I address you, young master? Lin Feng said, My name is Ji. The young woman thought that Lin Feng's surname was Ji, so she smiled and said, So, it's young master Ji. Sister Yuexin is so lucky to have found a man like you. She will be blessed in the future. Clearly, this woman called Lu Shaoqing knew Shui Yuexin. It wasn't surprising. They were both from little Western paradise, so it was normal for them to know each other. After hearing Lu Xiaoqing's words, Shui Yuexin wanted to explain her relationship with Lin Feng. However, when she saw Lin Feng's gesture, she understood and didn't say anything. Although she didn't know why Lin Feng didn't let her explain, Shui Yuexin was very happy. At least in the eyes of others, she and Lin Feng were lovers, and Lin Feng didn't refute this in front of others. "Young master, are you here to participate in the trade fair organized by Evil Monk Yuanji?" Lu Xiaoqing asked curiously. Lin Feng nodded and said, "That's my intention. I think it's about time. After we finish this cup of tea, we'll wait for a while. When the time comes, I'll bring young master along." Lu Xiaoqing said with a smile. Shui Yuexin was a little unhappy because Lu Xiaoqing's reputation wasn't very good. Moreover, she could bring Lin Feng along. When Lu Xiaoqing said that she wanted to bring Lin Feng along, Shui Yuexin naturally knew what Lu Xiaoqing's intentions were. If Shui Yuexin was really Lin Feng's woman, she could have objected and told Lu Xiaoqing that Lin Feng was her man, so Lu Xiaoqing shouldn't have any ideas. However, Shui Yuexin knew that there was nothing between her and Lin Feng. Moreover, they hadn't known each other for a long time, so they could only be considered friends. Therefore, she couldn't reject Lu Xiaoqing on behalf of Lin Feng. "Then I'll have to trouble you." Lin Feng didn't think too much about it and said casually, "Hee, it's my honor to serve young master." Chapter 4904. Lin Feng was a knowledgeable person, so he had great self-control. There were many things he didn't say not because he didn't know, but because he didn't want to. Sometimes turning a blind eye to things could make everyone happy. Only someone with too much time on their hands would cause trouble for no reason. Thus, Lin Feng was speechless when he saw those who liked to bully others. It was a good thing that they didn't cause trouble for him, or he would have beaten them to a pulp. After finishing the tea, someone came to inform Lu Xiaoqing that Evil Monk Yuanji's business was done. Everyone could go to Yuanji Evil Monk now. Lu Xiaoqing got up and smiled. "Young Noble Ji, Sister Yuexin, let's go now." Lin Feng nodded. Lu Xiaoqing led the way to the trading area. Lin Feng was a bit hesitant. The monk's name was quite strange. Why did he have to use Yuanji? In Buddhism, the word Yuanji meant death. These two words were quite taboo, but it was clear that Evil Monk Yuanji didn't mind these things. Perhaps he wasn't a real monk in essence. When Lin Feng arrived at the trading hall, there were already many cultivators there. The cultivator sitting on the main seat was a burly man. How should it be described? The burly man had a fierce face, but he was bald. He did not have the benevolent appearance of a Buddhist monk. Instead, he looked more like a fierce and ruthless person. This must be Evil Monk Yuanji. There was a woman kneeling on his left and right. Both of them were in the monk's embrace. Two more women were massaging the monk. When Lin Feng's group arrived, many people stared at Lin Feng in surprise. This was because Lin Feng was flanked by two peerless beauties. Both Lu Xiaoqing and Shui Yuexin were exceedingly beautiful. It made people's hearts palpitate. But now that she had accompanied Lin Feng here, everyone was very curious. Many people were guessing the identity of Lin Feng. Naturally, there were also some who had witnessed how Lin Feng had bought 2 sets of immortal artifacts to humiliate Li Xiaolu and Sikong Maobai. However, they still did not recognize Lin Feng. Evil Monk Yuanji's eyes lit up when he saw Lu Xiaoqing and Shui Yuexin. Buddhist precepts. Lust. However, Evil Monk Yuanji clearly did not have such taboos. After seeing Lu Xiaoqing and Shui Yuexin, he immediately felt that the 4 women beside him were all ordinary. "Scram! Let the 2 fairies sit here." Yuanji Evil Monk pushed away the 2 women beside him. He had bought them with money. They were equivalent to his slaves at his mercy. Even if he gave the two women away or killed them, no one would say anything. The two women trembled in fear and quickly retreated to the back. The two women who were massaging Evil Monk Yuanji were also frightened. Evil Monk Yuanji was temperamental. Naturally, they were very worried about their fate. Lu Shaoqing said, "We won't go to the master's side. We can sit here." Lin Feng found a place to sit down. Lu Shaoqing and Shui Yuexin sat on Lin Feng's left and right respectively. Many people could not help but feel excited when they saw this scene. Of course, everyone knew Lu Shaoqing and Shui Yuexin. The two of them were famous beauties in the little Western Paradise City. They were the goddesses in many people's hearts. Now, the two of them were accompanying Lin Feng. It was really enviable. Evil Monk Yuanji glanced at Lin Feng with his gloomy eyes before retracting his gaze. After waiting for another hour, many people came one after another. Lu Shaoqing said, "It's about time. The trade fair can begin." Evil Monk Yuanji took out all kinds of things. There were bottles of Buddhist resin, kasaya, wooden fish, Buddhist beads, Buddha statues, demon-subduing puppet, saraira, Bodhi beads, and other treasures. After seeing those treasures, many people's eyes widened. In fact, the power of these Buddhist treasures might not be as powerful as some of the treasures in the hands of cultivators. But the key was that these Buddhist treasures could restrain the evil ghosts. In the world of cultivators, evil ghosts were very common. Ordinary magic treasures could not restrain those evil ghosts. Therefore, when cultivators encountered evil ghosts, they would die without a burial place if they were not careful. But if they had the Buddhist treasures, the situation would be completely different. At that time, when they activated the Buddhist treasures, they could restrain the attacks of those evil ghosts. In fact, it could even kill those evil ghosts. Therefore, Buddhist treasures were extremely precious to any cultivator. However, it was more difficult for cultivators in the outside world to obtain Buddhist treasures. This was because Buddhist treasures were rarely circulated, especially those top treasures, which were even more difficult to circulate. Now, these Buddhist treasures would naturally cause a lot of people to fight over them. Buddhist treasure kasaya, 500,000 immortal stones. Buddhist treasure, wooden fish, 300,000 immortal stones. Demon-subduing puppet, 800,000 immortal stones. Buddhist treasure, Buddha statue, 1,500,000 immortal stones. Ordinary Buddhist resin, 1 million immortal stones. Medium Buddhist resin, 2 million immortal stones. High Buddhist resin, 5 million immortal stones. Buddhist saraira, ordinary saraira, 2 million immortal stones, medium saraira for million immortal stones, and high saraira, 8 million immortal stones. Evil Monk Yuanji introduced the prices of various Buddhist treasures to everyone. Someone frowned and said, "Your prices are too expensive. Many things are several times more expensive than the black market. That's too outrageous." Evil Monk Yuanji said, faintly, "Ridiculous my ass. How can my treasures be compared to those in the black market? They're completely different in terms of quality. Moreover, Buddhist treasures rarely appear in the black market. Even if they do appear, you won't be able to buy them because they'll be snatched away by the major factions with connections. But you can buy the treasures you like from me. So what if they're a little more expensive? Life is the most precious thing. I'm sure you all understand this principle. I'll take those 9 bottles of Buddhist resin." Lin Feng took out 24 million immortal stones and handed them to Evil Monk Yuanji, then took the 9 bottles of Buddhist resin. Of the 9 bottles of Buddha resin, 3 were ordinary Buddha resin, 3 were medium Buddha resin, and 3 were high Buddha resin. Buddhist resin could be used to dispel in ghosts or during cultivation. These 9 bottles could be used for a period of time. Chapter 49:05. Brat, you're going to take all of it by yourself? I'm afraid you won't be able to handle it. Someone frowned. Clearly, he wanted to buy the resin as well. Lin Feng nonchalantly said, I've already bought it. Do you have a problem with that? Seeing that Lin Feng wasn't someone to be trifled with, the other party didn't dare to say anything else. The evil monk said, There are only so many things. First come, first serve. If you can't get it, you can only blame yourself for being too slow. No wonder others acted so quickly, and no wonder those who acted so quickly swept everything clean. Many cultivators no longer hesitated after hearing this, and began to buy the treasures they wanted. Soon, the items brought by evil monk Yuanji were sold out by all the cultivators. Someone asked, I heard that evil monk Yuanji brought a sacred ancestor Buddha stone. I wonder if it's true? The evil monk said, Of course it's true. As soon as he finished speaking, Yuanji waved his hand, and a blood-stained rock flew out. That blood-stained stone was very special. Surrounded by Buddhist light, anyone could feel a very special charm of the great Tao from the stone. This was because the Tao aura was too powerful. It was clearly the sacred ancestor Buddha stone. Many people's eyes lit up after seeing the sacred ancestor Buddha stone. This stone was stained with the blood of a Buddha, so it was equivalent to a supreme treasure of the Buddhist faith. Moreover, it contained the grand Tao of the Buddhist faith. If one could comprehend it, the benefits would be endless. However, no one knew what kind of Tao it contained. How much is the stone? Someone impatiently asked, wanting to get his hands on this supreme treasure. Yuanji evil monk said, The sacred ancestor Buddha stone will be auctioned off. The highest bidder wins. What's the starting price? Someone asked. 10 million immortal stones. The evil monk laughed. Many people couldn't help but frown. The starting price was 10 million immortal stones. This price was truly too high. No one knew how many immortal stones it would cost, but even with such a high price, there were still many people who wanted to fight for it. That was because the other party also knew how precious the sacred ancestor Buddha stone was. If they could obtain the sacred ancestor Buddha stone, they would definitely be able to obtain it. If they could get their hands on it, they would gain endless benefits. 100 million. Just when everyone was complacent and wanted to participate in the bidding, a voice suddenly sounded. After hearing this voice, many people's faces turned green. The one who bid 100 million was none other than Lin Feng. Others naturally became depressed after seeing Lin Feng's outrageous bid. Lin Feng looked as if he was determined to get it. Moreover, the news of Lin Feng spending 140 million immortal stones to win the smile of a beauty spread in the hall. Because of this, it was too difficult to compete with Lin Feng. Therefore, many cultivators who originally wanted to bid didn't compete with Lin Feng. This is a good item. Everyone, hurry up and bid. Yuanji heretic monk became anxious. He estimated that the final price of the sacred ancestor Buddha stone would be around 200 million to 300 million. If no one joined the bidding, it wouldn't reach his ideal price. However, no one was willing to bid against Lin Feng. Even after hearing evil monk Yuanji's instigation, the surrounding cultivators remained silent. He did not participate in the bidding. After waiting for a while, Lu Shaoqing said, Master, since no one else is bidding, can we conclude the deal with young Master Ji now? Evil monk Yuanji's face darkened. Although he was unwilling, there was no other way. After all, he still had to do business here in the future. It would be bad if his reputation was ruined. Evil monk Yuanji said with a fake smile, Of course we have a deal. If this benefactor takes out 100 million immortal stones, this saintly ancestor Buddha stone will be yours. Lin Feng nodded and handed 100 million immortal stones to the monk. He then kept the sacred ancestor Buddha stone. It wasn't a good time to study it now. It wouldn't be too late to do so after returning to his residence. Everyone, the trade fair is over. You may leave now, Lu Shaoqing said. Everyone stood up and prepared to leave. At this time, evil monk Yuanji looked at Lu Shaoqing and Shui Yuexin and said with a smile, Fairy Lu, Fairy Shui, do you want to go sightseeing with this poor monk? I still have some good things that I haven't taken out yet. I can give them to the two fairies when the time comes. Many people cursed evil monk Yuanji in their hearts. It was really a misfortune for Buddhism to have such a person. Everyone knew why he invited Lu Shaoqing and Shui Yuexin to sightsee. Lu Shaoqing said, I'm really sorry. We have already made an appointment with young Master Ji tonight to discuss poetry and songs. Therefore, we can't agree to Master's request. Poetry and songs? Discuss poetry and songs? Who are you trying to fool? Many people muttered in their hearts. They looked at Lin Feng with envy and jealousy. Clearly, everyone thought that Lin Feng wanted to enjoy the blessings of having multiple partners. However, there was no point in being envious. After all, Lin Feng was young, talented, handsome, and rich. If they were women, they would also like a man like Lin Feng. Lin Feng couldn't help but rub his nose, feeling a bit depressed. Lu Shaoqing was using him as a shield. However, Lin Feng didn't care about this. It didn't matter anyway. Moreover, Lu Shaoqing's words could help Shui Yuexin get rid of evil monk Yuanji. Have you made an appointment with this brat? That's easy. Evil monk Yuanji pointed at Lin Feng. He then walked towards Lin Feng and said, Brat, tonight, I want to go sightseeing with the two fairies. You don't have any objections, right? Sightseeing? Sorry, I have already made an appointment with the two fairies. Lin Feng said indifferently, Are you not going to give me face? Evil monk Yuanji's eyes flashed with coldness. Young master, try not to offend him. Shui Yuexin whispered to Lin Feng. She was worried that Lin Feng would be in big trouble after offending evil monk Yuanji. After all, evil monk Yuanji was very powerful. Moreover, these monks had strange means. Offending them was not a wise move. Lin Feng smiled and said, Don't worry. He then looked at evil monk Yuanji and said, Who do you think you are? You think you're worthy of me giving you face. The moment Lin Feng said that, the surroundings became silent. Chapter 49:06. In everyone's opinion, Lin Feng was indeed extremely wealthy. However, they speculated that Lin Feng had so many immortal stones because Lin Feng might have obtained some great fortuitous encounter. Secondly, Lin Feng might have come from a top faction. That was why he had so many immortal stones. However, having immortal stones didn't mean one was strong. The evil monks and demonic monks of the Western Heaven region had always been fearless. After killing someone, they would run back to the Western Heaven region. Even the heavenly court didn't dare to attack them in the Western Heaven region. Therefore, even if Lin Feng had a powerful faction backing him, he wasn't much of a threat to the evil monks of the Western Heaven region. Everyone knew that. The evil monks and demonic monks of the Western Heaven region couldn't be offended. It wouldn't end well for anyone who offended them. In everyone's opinion, Lin Feng must be aware of this. However, even though Lin Feng knew that he was still acting arrogantly in front of evil monk Yuanji, he didn't care about evil monk Yuanji at all. Therefore, everybody was astonished. Lin Feng was a young cultivator. How could he act so arrogantly in front of evil monk Yuanji? Did he think that the evil monk wouldn't dare to touch him because he had a powerful faction backing him? If that was the case, then he couldn't be more wrong. Good boy, you're arrogant enough, but you chose the wrong person. I'll make you kneel on the ground and kowtow to me later. The evil monk's face darkened when he heard Lin Feng's words. He then looked at Lin Feng with a chilling gaze. As soon as he finished speaking, the evil monk leaped out and slapped at Lin Feng. "Watch out, young master!" Shui Yuexin couldn't help but exclaim. She was worried that Lin Feng would be at a disadvantage. Lu Shaoqing squinted at Lin Feng. She wasn't as naive as Shui Yuexin. He had always been suspicious of Lin Feng's identity and cultivation. Now was the perfect time to observe Lin Feng's strength. Evil monk Yuanji's hand was about to reach Lin Feng, but at that moment, Lin Feng dodged to the left. Lin Feng dodged evil monk Yuanji's punch easily and threw a kick at him. A muffled sound of collision was heard. Lin Feng's kick landed on the evil monk's abdomen. The evil monk screamed and was sent flying, knocking over many tables and chairs. He lay sprawled on the ground while spitting out blood. Clearly, the injury from Lin Feng's kick wasn't light. After seeing this scene, everyone was completely dumbfounded. Evil monk Yuanji was a celestial cultivator, and Lin Feng had just kicked him away. Wasn't this a little too unbelievable? Shui Yuexin's mouth was slightly agape. Her eyes were filled with shock. She didn't expect Lin Feng to be so strong. Gasps could be heard coming from the trading hall. "You're courting death. Consider that kick a lesson for you. Don't offend me again. I'll send you to the Western Pure Land to meet Buddha." Lin Feng sneered. Evil monk Yuanji stood up and looked at Lin Feng in fear. He knew he had bitten off more than he could chew. Therefore, the evil monk didn't dare to say anything else. Lin Feng then walked out of the trading hall. The cultivators in the area also dispersed. However, many of them were still talking about what had just happened. Lu Shaoqing looked at Lin Feng and said, "Young master, don't leave tonight. Why don't you stay here and recite some poems? Won't that be fun?" Lu Shaoqing had used this as an excuse to reject the evil monk, but now Lu Shaoqing officially invited Lin Feng. Shui Yuexin cursed Lu Shaoqing for being a vixen. She only knew how to seduce Lin Feng. In fact, she had forgotten that she was a vixen. Lin Feng said, "It's getting late. I can't stay for too long. Let's meet again in the future if we have time." Lin Feng then walked out of the trading hall. When Shui Yuexin saw that Lin Feng had rejected Lu Shaoqing, she was happy. She quickly caught up with Lin Feng. She walked faster than before. Interesting. This man really makes me feel a little excited." Lu Shaoqing narrowed her eyes and looked at Lin Feng. Her lips curled into a charming smile. He left the black market. Lin Feng returned to his residence. Shui Yuexin followed Lin Feng to Lin Feng's residence. She smiled and said, "Lu Shaoqing seems to be interested in young master. I guess she will send me away halfway and find a chance to be alone with young master." Lin Feng smiled and said, "Is that so? I can't guess what she will do. I'll have to trouble you today. It's getting late. You should go back and rest." Hearing Lin Feng asking her to go back, Shui Yuexin felt a little disappointed. She wanted to stay with Lin Feng for a while. In his heart, he was even vaguely anticipating some things to happen. However, Lin Feng didn't do what she expected. "Then I'll go back first. Young master must be very tired. You should rest early," Shui Yuexin said. "Okay." Lin Feng nodded. He sent Shui Yuexin out of the courtyard and went back. Shui Yuexin looked at Lin Feng's courtyard with resentment and then walked towards the beast carriage not far away. Back in the room, Lin Feng took out the sacred ancestor Buddha stone. The blood on the sacred ancestor Buddha stone had dried up long ago. However, it still contained a powerful Buddhist nature. When one calmed down, one could vaguely hear the chanting of ancient Buddhas resounding in the world. This sacred ancestor Buddha stone is really extraordinary. I wonder what kind of secret is hidden in it. Lin Feng couldn't help but murmur to himself. He sat down cross-legged and held the sacred ancestor Buddha stone in his hand. He tried to feel the Tao in the sacred ancestor Buddha stone. However, Lin Feng tried many times but couldn't feel the Tao in the sacred ancestor Buddha stone. However, Lin Feng didn't give up because of the failure. He continued to feel the Tao in the sacred ancestor Buddha stone. Time passed slowly, and no one knew how long had passed. Lin Feng felt that there was a lot of divine power in the world. He was wrapped in the divine power, and it felt very comfortable. Namo Amitabha. Chapter 49:07. Lin Feng opened his eyes when the old voice rang out. He immediately saw a world of darkness before him. Endless darkness shrouded the land. A lone temple was emitting endless Buddhist light. The darkness wanted to devour the temple, but it was unsuccessful. Keek keek, a sinister and terrifying laughter rang out from the darkness. There was clearly an extremely terrifying creature in the darkness. Suddenly, a strong wind blew between heaven and earth. The sweeping storm swept towards the lone temple, wanting to destroy it. But at this moment, an old monk appeared above the temple. Behind the old monk, there was an endless amount of Buddhist light. The halos made him look even more sacred. This was an eminent monk who had achieved the Tao. Moreover, his status in Buddhism was probably extremely high. Even Lin Feng felt that the old monk gave off a holy and otherworldly feeling. He couldn't help but want to kneel down and worship the old monk. Infinite Moke. After the old monk appeared, he put his palms together. Although his voice was old, it was filled with righteousness and holiness. Moreover, his voice was very strong and powerful. As soon as the old monk's voice fell, the storm that was sweeping in from all directions disappeared completely. Old bald donkey, your methods are really brilliant. The creature hidden in the darkness said coldly. He had been besieging the temple for a long time, but he couldn't take it down. The old monk that appeared just now wasn't the old monk's original body. It was just an incarnation. The old monk didn't respond to the mysterious creature in the darkness. Rumble! At this moment, huge stars fell from the sky in the darkness. Due to the intense friction with the air, when the huge stars fell, those huge stars burned. Those huge stars smashed towards the temple. It was an extremely terrifying divine ability. It summoned meteorites from outer space, and then attacked the target fiercely. Vajra light shield. At this moment, the old monk's voice rang out. A huge golden light shield appeared and enveloped the temple. Bang, bang, bang. The huge stars smashed into the golden light shield, and an earth-shaking collision sound was heard. The power of the golden light shield was truly terrifying. It was actually able to withstand the collisions of one star after another. All the attacks of the stars were blocked by the golden light shield. Slash! An exasperated voice came from the darkness. Clearly, the creature in the darkness was extremely angry. He used all sorts of methods to attack the temple. This caused him to feel a deep sense of humiliation. At that very moment, he took out a treasured sword. It was actually an ancient weapon. The power of that ancient weapon was simply too terrifying. With the ancient weapon in his hand, he slashed at the temple, intending to destroy it. At this moment, in the great strength hall inside the temple, an old monk put his palms together. And at this moment, outside, above the temple, the old monk that appeared did the exact same thing as the old monk in the Hall of Great Strength. He suddenly clasped his hands together. When the terrifying sword light of the ancient weapon came flying over at a high speed, Yi Zichen was shocked. The old monk that appeared above the temple clamped down on the dazzling sword light with both hands. What powerful strength! Lin Feng was shocked. The old monk was indeed too powerful. He actually displayed such shocking combat strength. He was truly worthy of being a Buddha. A Buddha was also very rare in Buddhism. What kind of Buddhist monk could be called a Buddha? The present, past, and future Buddhas could be called Buddhas. In addition, the 7 great ancient Buddhas could also be called Buddhas. Of course, in the long history of Buddhism, there were definitely other experts who could be called Buddhas. However, such existences were too rare, and the old monk in front of him was such a powerful existence. The mysterious creature in the darkness seemed extremely irritable. He kept roaring, and his eyes flashed with killing intent. After the old monk blocked the opponent's attack, he continued to sit cross-legged and prepared to deal with the opponent's next attack. Obviously, the old monk was not moving to deal with the situation. No matter what the creature in the darkness used, he had a way to deal with it. The old monk's methods were indeed very extraordinary. At that moment, a middle-aged monk came to the old monk's side and said, "Master, you've been fighting for a long time, and your magic power has been greatly depleted. Disciple has the holy spring water here that can quickly recover your magic power. Master, drink some of the holy spring water." The middle-aged monk took out a porcelain bottle and handed it to the old monk. That porcelain bottle probably contained the holy spring water. "Thank you, disciple," said the old monk. He opened the bottle and began to drink the holy spring water. However, at that moment, a dagger suddenly appeared in the middle-aged monk's hand. He stabbed the dagger at the old monk's back, wanting to stab the old monk to death. How could it be so easy to sneak up on an expert like the old monk? The old monk grabbed the middle-aged monk's wrist and asked, "Master." He then asked, "F.A. Ming, what are you doing?" "Kikik, my lord master, don't you know what I'm doing?" The middle-aged monk laughed sinisterly. "You've sided with them." The old monk seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed drastically. "Yes, Lord Master, I've sided with them. If I don't, only death will await me. I don't want to die. Lord Master, why don't you side with them as well? With Lord Master's strength, if you side with them, you'll definitely be put in an important position." The middle-aged monk laughed sinisterly. "Master, do you know what you're talking about?" The old monk said, angrily, enraged at Xiao Chen's failure to fight. "Master, you can get angry as well? This is the first time I've seen you get angry." Master Dharma continued to speak in a sinister tone. Clearly, the old monk was angry because of his disciple. The old monk said, "I picked you up in the mountains. At that time, you were just a baby in swaddling clothes. I thought that after all these years of Buddhism's teachings, you would definitely have a kind heart and be devoted to Buddhism. Who would have thought that you would still fall into the demonic path?" Chapter 4908. Dharma Ming was abandoned in a barren mountain when he was still an infant. He was the demon infant. He was picked up by the old monk. At that time, many people persuaded the old monk to put the demon infant in the forest and let him fend for himself. That was the best home for him. However, the old monk was kind-hearted and could not bear to see a young life die like that. Therefore, he brought the demon infant back to the temple. He also taught the demon infant since he was young. The demon infant was the current Dharma Ming. All these years, Dharma Ming had always been very good and compassionate. However, in the end, he still went astray. This made the old monk's heart ache. He originally wanted to turn a demon into an immortal, but things did not go as he wished. Moreover, after interacting with Dharma Ming all these years, he naturally had a deep relationship with him. Therefore, when he saw Dharma Ming go astray, the old monk had mixed feelings. Demons can also be good. The old monk said, "I am more willing to be a demon than a human." Dharma Ming said sinisterly, "Then I'll suppress you and use the Buddhist holy technique to cleanse your soul, the old monk said, and wanted to suppress Dharma Ming. However, at this moment, Dharma Ming laughed strangely and said, "Old bald donkey, I'll let you have a taste of my holy demon annihilation technique." As soon as he said that, Dharma Ming's body began to swell. He seemed to be about to self-destruct. This was a terrifying technique that Dharma Ming had mastered. When his body self-destructed, it would produce a terrifying destructive force that could destroy the world, and he would be reborn from the flames of self-destruction. This technique was very heaven-defying. It was said that it could only be used 10 times in a lifetime. However, in order to deal with this old monk, Dharma Ming decided to use this trump card. Bang! His body instantly exploded, as the old monk was too close to Dharma Ming. When Dharma Ming chose to self-destruct, it was already too late for the old monk to dodge. Therefore, the destructive force of Dharma Ming's self-destruction instantly drowned the old monk. The great strength hall shook violently. When the aftermath of the energy dissipated, the old monk fell to the ground and coughed up blood. Dharma Ming's self-destruction did not kill him. After all, he was in existence at the level of a Buddha. His strength was too powerful. However, no matter how powerful he was, he had suffered such a serious impact. His body's injuries would also be very serious. What happened? At this time, many monks in the other halls rushed over. They saw the old monk on the ground and Dharma Name, who had just condensed his body. "Old bald donkey, your life is really tough," F.A. Ming said sinisterly. "F.A. Ming, how dare you sneak attack Master? F.A. Ming, how dare you betray Master? You deserve to die." The rest of the monks also understood what was going on, and they all roared out in anger. Then, the monks rushed towards F.A. Ming, intending to kill him. But at this moment, endless darkness gushed into the temple. Just now, when the old monk was injured by Dharma Name's sneak attack, the defense system of the entire temple was damaged, so the creature in the darkness seized the opportunity. Darkness! In an instant, it devoured the entire temple. Horrible shrieks kept coming out of the temple. When Lin Feng heard those shrieks, he couldn't help but sigh. These monks! It's over! In the end, only a blood-stained stone broke through the shroud of darkness and disappeared into the sky. All the scenes came to an abrupt end at this point. Lin Feng knew that the scenes he saw were probably some of the things that happened back then. That blood-stained stone was probably formed by the blood of that Buddha-level old monk after his death. That stone, it was the sacred ancestor Buddha's stone. Lin Feng continued to comprehend the Tao recorded in the sacred ancestor Buddha's stone. That old monk was so powerful, so the Tao he left behind must be extremely terrifying. Although Lin Feng still didn't know what Tao the old monk left behind, it was definitely a Tao that people looked forward to. If he could obtain that Tao, it would be very useful for his own improvement. Now, Lin Feng liked to cultivate some top Tao. The Tao here referred to those top divine abilities, immortal sutras, demon sutras, and so on. Because after cultivating these divine abilities and cultivation methods, even if it didn't allow him to make a breakthrough in his realm, it would greatly improve his combat strength. This was a powerful accumulation of power. Slowly, Lin Feng heard the chanting of the ancient Buddha. The voice was very old, but it contained the divine sound of the great Tao. After listening to it, it would make people feel refreshed both physically and mentally. It was like a kind of cleansing of the soul. In the end, ancient runes condensed and formed in Lin Feng's mind. Lin Feng began to comprehend these ancient runes. Heavenly Buddha! Soon, Lin Feng showed an incomparably shocked expression. These runes actually recorded an extremely powerful divine ability, and that divine ability was called Heavenly Buddha. This divine ability was created by the old monk of the Buddha realm. When the divine ability of all true Buddhas was activated, one could summon the phantoms of all true Buddhas to support oneself. This was one of the most powerful offensive divine abilities in the history of Buddhism. It was the supreme technique of Buddhism. When Lin Feng woke up from his cultivation, he was surprised. An excited expression appeared on his face. The sacred ancestor Buddha stone actually recorded such a powerful divine ability of heavenly Buddha. It was really exciting. Lin Feng began to comprehend the divine ability of heavenly Buddha. Lin Feng's comprehension of the great Tao was something that ordinary people couldn't reach. So it only took Lin Feng 5 days to learn this divine ability. Lin Feng just came out of seclusion. Someone came to Lin Feng. The person who came to Lin Feng was Lu Xiaoqing's maid. She brought a letter from Lu Xiaoqing. Lin Feng opened Lu Xiaoqing's letter and began to read it. After reading the letter, Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. Lu Xiaoqing said that there was an extremely precious treasure and wanted to invite him to appreciate it. What kind of treasure was it? Why was he acting so mysteriously? Lin Feng didn't know what Lu Xiaoqing was up to. However, Lin Feng was still very interested in the treasure that Lu Xiaoqing had mentioned. Moreover, Lin Feng was skilled and daring. Therefore, no matter what tricks Lu Xiaoqing played, Lin Feng would not be afraid. Lin Feng looked at Lu Xiaoqing's maid and said, "Go back and tell Fairy Lu that tonight. I will visit Fairy Lu." After the maid received an affirmative answer from Lin Feng, she took her leave. Lin Feng took a bath, changed into a clean set of clothes, and rested for 4 hours. Chapter 4909. Lu Xiaoqing was a mysterious person. Moreover, her reputation had always been bad. Of course, the rumors about her being indecent might be false, but this woman was definitely not simple. 2 hours later, Lin Feng arrived at Lu Xiaoqing's place. Lu Xiaoqing was the person in charge of the Saint Treasure Pavilion, the largest trading place in the black market. Lin Feng was not particularly clear about the background of the Saint Treasure Pavilion. However, since the Saint Treasure Pavilion was able to take root in a large city like the Western Paradise City and was the largest trading place, it was clear that the Saint Treasure Pavilion had the support of a powerful faction. Under the guidance of the servant girl, Lin Feng met Lu Xiaoqing. The servant girl tactfully retreated, leaving only Lin Feng and Lu Xiaoqing in the hall. Lin Feng cupped his fists and said, "Fairy, you said that you have a treasure and invited me to appraise it together. May I know what it is?" Lu Xiaoqing stood up and came to Lin Feng's side. With an aggrieved expression, she said, "Did you come here just to appraise the treasure?" This servant thought that young master had come to see this servant. Lin Feng naturally did not fall for Lu Xiaoqing's trick. Of course, Lin Feng did not mind putting on a show. Thus, Lin Feng said, "I came here to appraise the treasure, and to see Fairy Lu." Hearing Lin Feng's words, Lu Xiaoqing looked at Lin Feng charmingly and said, "You really know how to make me happy." Lin Feng asked, "Can you take out the treasure now?" Lu Xiaoqing could not help but roll her eyes. He thought to himself, "Is this guy a blockhead?" Of course, Lu Xiaoqing did not say this out loud. Lu Xiaoqing continued, "I understand that you want to quickly appraise the treasure. Now let's do it." After saying that, Lu Xiaoqing fell towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng reacted quickly and supported Lu Xiaoqing, allowing her to sit on the bench, instead of letting Lu Xiaoqing fall into his arms. This action caused Lu Xiaoqing to look at Lin Feng resentfully. Fortunately, there was no one else here. If someone else saw the look in Lu Xiaoqing's eyes, they would definitely be furious. Many people even felt that Lin Feng must have done something to Lu Xiaoqing. That was why Lu Xiaoqing had such a sorrowful expression. Lin Feng said, I didn't see the treasure that Fairy was talking about. You haven't taken it out yet, have you? Lu Xiaoqing said coquettishly, The treasure I'm talking about is me. What? Is the treasure you're talking about yourself? Lin Feng was stunned. Then he was speechless. This woman really made people not know whether to laugh or cry. Pooh! Seeing Lin Feng's depressed expression, Lu Xiaoqing immediately laughed. She said, I was just teasing you just now. Lu Xiaoqing stood up and said, The treasure that I'm going to show you is a stone artifact. Stone artifact? Lin Feng was surprised and immediately said, Celestial Maiden, please take out the stone artifact. Lu Xiaoqing nodded and waved her hand. A stone artifact flew out. It was actually a stone cauldron. Lin Feng had seen many stone artifacts, but Lin Feng rarely saw stone cauldrons. In the past, cauldrons were the king of all artifacts. In fact, even now, cauldron-type artifacts had a very high status. For example, some ancient immortal dynasties and ancient divine nations would say, Cauldron World. One of them was the word cauldron. Cauldrons represented the world. Especially in the era of the ancient divine emperor, cauldrons represented the world's peace. Cauldrons protected the four directions. It meant that with cauldrons guarding the four directions, there would be no rebellion. From this, one could see the special status of cauldrons in history. The Stone Age was the beginning of the epoch. Therefore, cauldrons had a very high status. Cauldrons in the Stone Age often represented many special meanings. Was Lu Xiaoqing's stone cauldron the same? That was hard to say. He would need to examine it to know. Lu Xiaoqing said, There are many runes on this stone cauldron. However, these runes are too mysterious. They are extremely ancient runes. I feel that these runes are not simple. You can study it carefully and see if you can find any abnormalities. Hearing this, Lin Feng nodded and came to the side of the stone cauldron. He carefully observed it. It was a green stone cauldron. He did not know what material it was made of, but it was densely covered in runes. Lin Feng recognized many ancient runes, but Lin Feng did not recognize the runes on this stone cauldron. Lin Feng could not help but frown. He transmitted his voice to the Demon Lord and asked, Demon Lord, look at the runes on this stone cauldron. Do you recognize these runes? After hearing Lin Feng's transmission, the Demon Lord flew out of the tomb in the Demon Pearl. Through the endless void, he looked at the runes on the stone cauldron. When he saw those runes, the Demon Lord's face revealed a shocked expression. This is Shenong rune, the Demon Lord said. Shenong rune? What kind of rune is this? Lin Feng asked. A type of rune invented by Shenong. The Demon Lord said. Hearing this, Lin Feng could not help but be shocked. Shenong, one of the three emperors. Back then, Shenong tasted hundreds of herbs and wrote the book Shenong Records. Only then did the later generations know what the various herbs were used for. As one of the three emperors, Shenong played a huge role in the development of the epoch. Moreover, Shenong was the ancestor of the human race. He was one of the three earliest ancestors of the human race. Shenong had an indelible contribution to the human race. Unfortunately, Shenong had become a sinner in the eyes of many. Shenong's descendants had also become sinners' descendants in the eyes of many. A few years ago, Lin Feng had seen Shenong's eldest daughter, Yaoji. She had been trapped for countless years and was on the verge of death. She hoped that he could go to the Wei River Lake to find Shenong, but the Wei River Lake seemed to be in the celestial realm. He could only wait until he reached the celestial realm to see if Shenong's descendants were still there. Lin Feng did not expect to see a stone cauldron branded with Shenong runes here. Lin Feng asked, could this stone cauldron be the legendary Shenong cauldron? The Shenong cauldron was one of the greatest treasures in the history of the human race. Moreover, it was said that the Shenong cauldron was one of the symbols of the human race for a very long time. It represented the foundation of the human race's orthodoxy. But later, the Shenong cauldron disappeared. Generations after generations of human experts had tried to find the Shenong cauldron, but to no avail. The Shenong cauldron disappeared for countless years. It did not reappear until the end of the epic. If the stone cauldron in front of him was the Shenong cauldron, then its significance was too extraordinary. It was not something that ordinary top-tier treasures could compare to. Once the Shenong cauldron appeared, it would definitely be able to gather the souls of billions of humans. Chapter 49:10. The Demon Lord said, although it has Shenong's runes, it's not the Shenong cauldron. However, this stone cauldron is still very extraordinary. I have a feeling that this stone cauldron is also an ancient cauldron forged by Shenong. After hearing the Demon Lord's words, Lin Feng couldn't help but be surprised. He asked, "Why do you think so?" Everyone's habit of inscribing divine imprints is different. This is just like how everyone's notes are different. Thus, we can tell from the notes whether or not two words were written by the same person. The same is true for divine imprints. We can tell from different runes that they were carved by the same person. I've seen Shenong's runes before. Although many years have passed, I still have a deep impression of them. The characteristics of Shenong's runes are exactly the same as the runes on this stone cauldron. It's said that when Shenong was forging the Shenong cauldron, he was always looking for precious materials. At that time, some of the best materials were excellent for forging magical treasures. Before the Shenong cauldron was forged, Shenong had already forged many stone cauldrons, but those stone cauldrons had some flaws. That's why he couldn't forge a perfect Shenong cauldron. We can call those stone cauldrons second-grade Shenong cauldrons. The Demon Lord said, Lin Feng couldn't help but think. If he could find the real Shenong cauldron, it would be of great importance to him and the human race. Lin Feng had always hoped to become the 10th human emperor at the end of the epic. He wanted to lead the human cultivators and rise up in revolt. Then, the human race's bloodline would continue. If he could control the Shenong cauldron, it would be of great help to the human race. Seeing Lin Feng standing there without speaking or moving, as if he was in a daze, Lu Shaoqing couldn't help but feel strange. In fact, Lin Feng was communicating with the Demon Lord. Lu Shaoqing asked, "Young master, did you find any clues?" Lin Feng came back to his senses and looked at Lu Shaoqing. He said, "The runes on this cauldron are Shenong's runes, a type of language created by Shenong. However, this cauldron isn't made from stone. It was forged by Shenong in the past. That's why this cauldron doesn't have much offensive power. Its most powerful aspect is that its ability to refine pills. If that's the case, then it's a pity. I'm not someone who likes to refine pills." Lu Shaoqing sighed. Lin Feng said, "Apart from that, this cauldron was left behind by Shenong, so it's more or less connected to him. Perhaps we can use this cauldron to find Shenong's burial ground." Lu Shaoqing said, "I'm afraid that's as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, I'm very happy that young master is willing to tell me everything. How about this? Since I have no use for this cauldron, I'll give it to young master." Lin Feng naturally wanted this cauldron. However, he wasn't willing to accept such a valuable gift for no reason. Lin Feng said, "How about this? I'll buy this cauldron for 10 million immortal stones." Lu Shaoqing said unhappily, "This is something that I gave to young master, yet young master insists on buying it. Why is young master so clear with me? If it was something that Shui Yuexin gave to young master, would young master spend money to buy it?" Lin Feng fell silent. if it was something that Shui Yuexin gave to him, Lin Feng naturally wouldn't spend money to buy it. After all, Lin Feng had always had a good impression of Shui Yuexin. However, Lu Shaoqing and Shui Yuexin were different. Let's not talk about whether Lu Shaoqing was a woman of loose morals. Lin Feng didn't like Lu Shaoqing's personality. Lu Shaoqing was very good at scheming. For example, Lin Feng knew that Lu Shaoqing used him as a shield because she needed a shield to reject evil monk Yuanji's invitation. Secondly, she was suspicious of him and wanted to test him. Hence, she used evil monk Yuanji to test him. Lu Shaoqing looked pure and innocent, but she was a scheming person. She was a scheming person. It was difficult for her to treat other people with sincerity. Therefore, Lin Feng wanted to make things clear with Lu Shaoqing. He didn't want to have too much contact with Lu Shaoqing, and he also didn't want to have too much contact with her. Lin Feng said, "Sometimes it's better to be clear with friends." Lin Feng was telling Lu Shaoqing that they were just friends and nothing else. Lu Shaoqing said, "Everyone thinks that what they hear and see is real. However, many times what they hear may be fake, and what they see may not be real." Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly. He could vaguely guess what Lu Shaoqing was referring to. Perhaps she wanted to tell him something. The rumors about her being indecent were all fake. Lu Shaoqing continued, "The world of cultivators is so cruel. It's extremely difficult to establish a foothold in the world of cultivators. It's the same for male cultivators, let alone for women. For a woman to establish a foothold in a world dominated by male cultivators, the price she has to pay in the end is far from what ordinary people can imagine. Sometimes I'm very tired and want to find someone to talk to." As Lu Shaoqing said this, she was already secretly crying. Lin Feng knew that what Lu Shaoqing said was actually very reasonable. It was already very difficult for a cultivator to establish a foothold, let alone a female cultivator. Moreover, Lu Shaoqing was a beautiful female cultivator. The sadness behind it was destined to be something that no one else knew about. Seeing Lu Shaoqing crying there, Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. One of the things that Lin Feng didn't want to see the most was a woman crying, especially a woman falling down. It would always easily arouse his sympathy. Who asked Lin Feng to be a man who had tender feelings for the fairer sex? Therefore, when he saw Lu Shaoqing's pitiful appearance, he couldn't bear it. Lin Feng said, "Thank you for your kindness, Fairy. I'll accept this ancient cauldron. In the future, if Fairy has any problems, you can come to me. If I can help Fairy, I will definitely not refuse." Hearing this, Lu Shaoqing's beautiful face revealed a trace of a smile. She looked at Lin Feng and said, "I have a request now." "What request?" Lin Feng asked. Chapter 49:11. After hearing Lu Shaoqing's request, Lin Feng immediately laughed bitterly. Lu Shaoqing was very beautiful. In any ancient city, Lu Shaoqing's appearance could be ranked in the top few, especially since her figure was hot, but her face was very pure. Generally speaking, a woman with a pure face was usually a woman with a thin and petite figure. A woman with a sexy figure often had a charming face. But Lu Shaoqing was not like that. It was precisely because of this extreme contrast in figure and face that appeared on a person's body. That was why it was even more charming. If it were any other man, they would probably be extremely excited after hearing Lu Shaoqing's request. But Lin Feng was not like that. Although Lin Feng liked women, he cared more about feelings. Lin Feng also understood Lu Shaoqing's experience. It was indeed not easy for Lu Shaoqing, but it was a bit difficult for him to hug Lu Shaoqing. At the very least, he would have to wait until Lin Feng had that kind of special feeling for Lu Shaoqing before he would be interested in hugging Lu Shaoqing. Uft, At this time, Lu Shaoqing laughed and said, "I was just joking with young master. I am not a casual person." "Fairy, you're so naughty." Lin Feng laughed and said. Lin Feng stayed with Lu Shaoqing for 2 hours. They talked about many things. Lu Shaoqing told him about her life, including her childhood. Lin Feng didn't want to waste time with Lu Shaoqing, but he didn't want to waste time with her. When Lu Shaoqing was in her teens, her family had already been ruined. Later on, she was sold to a brothel for young girls. This kind of place specialized in collecting beautiful girls or young girls and then focused on nurturing them. After they grew up, they would be sold to high officials and nobles. Lu Shaoqing spent her youth in this kind of place, and then she was bought. One could imagine how miserable her fate would be in the future. However, on the night Lu Shaoqing was bought, she took advantage of the lax security to escape. Later on, she was accepted as a disciple by a deacon of the Saint Treasure Tower. Only then did her fate change. Later on, after many years of hard work, step by step, he climbed to his current position. These years, it was indeed not easy, and he had experienced many things. Most of the time, one needed to scheme against others to survive. Lu Shaoqing had never told anyone about her past, but for some reason, Lu Shaoqing felt that Lin Feng was someone worthy of her trust and someone worthy of her confiding in. Lin Feng quietly listened to Lu Shaoqing talk about her past. He couldn't change anything, but at least he could be the most sincere listener. After Lin Feng left Lu Shaoqing's place, Lu Shaoqing sat alone in the living room, holding her cheek in a daze. Lu Shaoqing finally understood why she trusted Lin Feng so much and wanted to have more contact with Lin Feng. The cause was a few days ago. She had witnessed the entire conflict between Lin Feng, Shui Yuexin, Li Xiaolu, and Sikong Mabai. Lu Shaoqing was not envious of Lin Feng's extravagant spending for Shui Yuexin. She was envious that Shui Yuexin had someone by her side who was willing to protect her when others humiliated and bullied her. Originally, Lu Shaoqing thought that Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin were lovers, so Lin Feng stood up for Shui Yuexin. However, Lu Shaoqing asked someone to investigate the relationship between Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin. After the results of the investigation, Lu Shaoqing found out that Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin were not lovers at all. Lin Feng was just a passing traveler in the little western paradise city. He knew Shui Yuexin because Lin Feng went to the Bai Shao Pavilion to inquire about information. Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin had only met a few times. Wasn't it nonsense to say that they were lovers? Perhaps they were just ordinary friends. As for Lin Feng, in order to protect an ordinary friend, he did not hesitate to offend a powerful force like the Sikong family. After knowing this, Lu Shaoqing had a new understanding of Lin Feng. She had never seen someone like Lin Feng. To be able to become Lin Feng's friend. Perhaps it was an extremely lucky thing. If she became Lin Feng's lover, how would Lin Feng protect her? Just thinking about it made her feel extremely excited. Actually, Lu Shaoqing was extremely insecure. Therefore, she saw a sense of security in Lin Feng that women could rely on. This was the main reason why Lu Shaoqing wanted to stay by Lin Feng's side. When Lin Feng returned to his residence, he saw a woman standing outside the courtyard. It was none other than Shui Yuexin. Under the moonlight, Shui Yuexin was extremely beautiful. She was an extremely beautiful woman. Now, under the moonlight, it added a special charm to her. Seeing that Lin Feng had returned, Shui Yuexin was extremely happy. Lin Feng invited Shui Yuexin to come with him. It's already so late. Is there something you need from me? Lin Feng looked at Shui Yuexin and asked, "There is indeed something. I have something that I would like to ask for your help with." Shui Yuexin said, "Tell me about it." Lin Feng said with a smile, Shui Yueshin said, "It's a letter from my family. I'm a member of the White Fox clan. A few years ago, my father was severely injured because of an operation by the clan. His meridians were damaged, and he became a cripple. Ever since he became a cripple, my clan status has been declining rapidly. However, the relationship between these big clans is not something that can be completely separated, especially when it comes to marriage. It's not something that can be decided by the younger generation. My father sent a letter saying that the clan wants to have a marriage alliance with a big immortal sect. The higher-ups of the clan thought of me and wanted me to marry them. All these years, no one cared about the life and death of my clan. Back then, my brother was bullied in the sect. He fought back and injured someone. The other party wanted us to pay a huge sum of immortal stones. We wanted to seek justice from the clan, but they didn't care about our life and death. Now that the clan wants to have a marriage alliance, these people thought of our clan, but I'm too weak to resist. So I hope that you can accompany me back and pretend to be my lover. That way, they won't be able to force me to marry them again." After Shui Yueshin said that, she looked at Lin Feng with a pitiful look. As the saying went, every clan had its own difficulties. Shui Yueshin's life was indeed very difficult. Lin Feng said, "All right, I'll accompany you when the time comes. When are we leaving?" Hearing that Lin Feng had agreed to accompany her, Shui Yueshin became very happy. She said, "How about we leave tomorrow?" Lin Feng nodded. "No problem." Shui Yueshin stayed with Lin Feng for a while before leaving. She was full of smiles when she left. It was so good to have Lin Feng by her side. It was a pity. Chapter 49:12. The next day, Shui Yuexian had come to see him, so Lin Feng and Shui Yuexian left. The man was handsome and dashing. The woman was enchanting. They naturally attracted a lot of attention along the way. However, not long after he left his residence, evil energy rolled in the distance. A large amount of evil energy surged in the void. Within the evil energy, there were a few cultivators floating in the air. Not long after, those cultivators quickly flew over. Lin Feng slightly raised his brows after seeing the cultivators inside. The cultivators within the evil chi were all monks. Lin Feng recognized one of them, Evil Monk Yuenji. Lin Feng didn't know the other monks, Evil Monk Yuenji, and the others had extraordinary cultivation bases, so they could do whatever they wanted outside. No one dared to offend them. Since Evil Monk Yuenji and the others were recklessly releasing their auras, they naturally attracted the attention of many cultivators. Due to that, many cultivators followed Evil Monk Yuenji's group, wanting to see what these monks were up to. It didn't take long before they saw Yuenji's group stop. Evil Monk Yuenji and the others quickly surrounded the two cultivators. To everyone's surprise, the two cultivators surrounded by Evil Monk Yuenji and the others were very young. Did these two offend Evil Monk Yuenji? Offending Evil Monk Yuenji's group wouldn't end well. Isn't that woman Shui Yueshin from the all-knowing pavilion? Suddenly, a cultivator recognized Shui Yueshin's identity and spoke out. "That's right, it's Shui Yueshin." Someone else said. The other party also recognized Shui Yueshin. Shui Yueshin had some reputation in the little western paradise city. After all, Shui Yueshin was so beautiful. The cultivators of the little western paradise city had also set up a beauty ranking for the many female cultivators in the city. Shui Yueshin was in the top 3. Thus, everyone was amazed after hearing that the woman was Shui Yueshin. She was indeed beautiful, especially Shui Yueshin's seductive charm. It was not a temperament that an ordinary woman could possess. Perhaps it had a lot to do with the fact that she was a vixen. Who's that young cultivator with Shui Yueshin? He looks like a young human cultivator, but he doesn't look familiar. He doesn't look like a cultivator from minor Western paradise. Another cultivator talked about Lin Feng. Indeed, he doesn't look like a cultivator from minor Western paradise. Maybe he's a young noble from a certain power. There aren't that many top powers in the human race, but there are still a few. Evil Monk Yuenji's group is here for him, right? Did he offend Evil Monk Yuenji? I'm afraid he won't be able to leave this time. Evil Monk Yuenji's group has always been lawless and murderous. Many cultivators in the surroundings were discussing, in their opinion, Lin Feng's fate of death after offending Evil Monk Yuenji. More importantly, Evil Monk Yuenji's group wasn't just strong, but also had the advantage in numbers. Lin Feng was only a young cultivator. How could he fight against Evil Monk Yuenji? There were a few cultivators in the crowd who had participated in the trade fair. When they saw Evil Monk Yuenji's group surrounding Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin, they couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. They had witnessed everything and knew that Lin Feng wasn't as simple as he looked. Lin Feng was definitely a powerful figure. Anyone who dared to underestimate Lin Feng would suffer a great loss. However, they weren't sure if Lin Feng would be able to gain an advantage in the upcoming conflict. After all, Evil Monk Yuenji didn't come alone this time. A few of his fellow disciples were with him. They had heard of these people and knew that they were very strong. The leader was called Evil Monk Yuanfa, a true immortal expert. He was Evil Monk Yuenji's eldest senior brother. Kid, have you thought about how you're going to die? Evil Monk Yuenji looked at Lin Feng with a cold smile. Before seeing Lin Feng, Evil Monk Yuenji had already thought of many ways to torture Lin Feng. If he let Lin Feng die a quick death, it would be too easy for Lin Feng. Evil Monk Yuenji wanted Lin Feng to experience all kinds of pain before he died. That was the only way. Only then would he be able to vent his hatred. Lin Feng glanced at the original machine god indifferently. I was wondering who it was. So, it's you, a piece of trash. Why did you come here and block my way? What do you want? Are you trying to send your little grandpa out of the city on your knees? Lin Feng's words silenced the crowd. Lin Feng's words were too arrogant. No one had expected Lin Feng to say something like that. He was extremely daring. That wasn't enough to describe Lin Feng, was it? Many people thought Lin Feng was crazy. Otherwise, how could he say something like that? How could he act so recklessly? That kid is dead, for sure. Evil Monk Yuenji and the others, they won't let him go. A cultivator said. Many people nodded in agreement. You're courting death. You're courting death. You're courting death. Evil Monk Yuenji flew into a rage after being humiliated by Lin Feng. However, he knew that Lin Feng wasn't easy to deal with, so he didn't make a move immediately. How interesting. You even dare to offend someone from the Western Horizon region. I'm curious, who gave you such courage? Evil Monk Yuanfa, the leader of the group, said. Lin Feng said calmly, of course, it's my own confidence. When a person is strong enough, they will be able to deal with anything calmly, just like me. Stop bragging, kid. You think you're invincible, just because you're a little strong? What a joke. Yuanji, Yuan Kong, Yuan Hai, the three of you attack together. Don't kill him. Capture him alive, Evil Monk Yuanfa said coldly. Yes, eldest senior brother. The three evil monks stepped forward after hearing Evil Monk Yuanfa's order. The three of them, Evil Monk Yuanji was the weakest among them. However, he was also a heavenly immortal. Evil Monk Yuan Kong and Yuan Hai were both quasi-true immortals. The three of them had been together for many years, so they had great teamwork. The three of them each took out a treasure. Evil monk Yuan Kong took out a demon subduing ruler. The demon subduing ruler quickly enlarged and released terrifying energies, which moved towards Lin Feng. Evil monk Yuan Hai took out a seal of mountains and seas. The seal of mountains and seas rapidly enlarged and pressed down on Lin Feng. Evil monk Yuanji took out a gilt sword. The gilt sword was branded with mysterious runes. When it was activated, it shone with dazzling golden light. The three evil monks attacked at the same time. Chapter 49:13. The three evil monks have joined the fray. That kid is dead, for sure. Exclamations were heard all of a sudden. In many people's eyes, the three evil monks had joined the fray. It was almost impossible for Lin Feng to resist. Moreover, the three evil monks had taken out their magic treasures to deal with Lin Feng. It could be seen how cautious the three of them were. This made everyone very confused. Against a young cultivator like Lin Feng, why be so cautious? No matter what, Lin Feng was dead for sure. Even the cultivators who had seen Lin Feng fight before could not help but frown at this moment. They were not optimistic about Lin Feng's chances. After all, two of the three evil monks were quasi-true immortals. With their powerful cultivation and the assistance of their magic treasures, the combat power they could display was unimaginable. Seeing that the magic treasures of the three evil monks were about to hit Lin Feng stretched out his right hand. Then, he gently pointed at the magic treasures of the three evil monks. Suddenly, something terrible happened. Everyone saw that the magic treasures of the three evil monks had changed directions. The three magic treasures rushed toward the three evil monks. After seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. They did not know what had happened. The scene in front of them was really too strange. Why were the three magic treasures attacking the three evil monks? Those were the three evil monks' most precious treasures. Just a moment ago, they were attacking Lin Feng. The three evil monks' faces changed drastically. They wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The main reason was that the three magic treasures had caught them off guard. Puff, puff, puff. Along with the sound of tearing, the three evil monks' bodies were directly torn apart by their magic treasures. They flew backward and fell to the ground, dead. It's him. It's that young master. He just pointed in the direction of the three magic treasures, and the three magic treasures immediately changed directions and attacked the three evil monks, forcibly depriving others of the right to use their magic treasures. What kind of means did he use just now? Does he know any demonic arts? Many cultivators exclaimed. The three evil monks' deaths were too humiliating. They were caught off guard by their own magic treasures and died in the end. Everyone looked at Lin Feng with deep respect. Lin Feng's means were too shocking and terrifying, although they did not know what kind of means Lin Feng had just used. It was indeed terrifying. If they were to fight against Lin Feng, wouldn't they be unable to use their magic treasures? Because if they used their treasures, Lin Feng would be able to control their treasures. Everybody knew what would happen then. What happened to the three evil monks was a lesson to be learned from. It's the weapon mantra of the 9 mysteries. At that moment, a white-haired old man's voice. What? The 9 mysteries have been lost? Oh my God, the legend of the 9 esotericas is true? I thought it was just a legend. Who is this brat? He actually cultivated the 9 mysteries of Taoism. When the old man said that Lin Feng's technique was the weapon mantra of the 9 mysteries, the crowd went into an uproar. Many cultivators had heard of the 9 mysteries, but no one had actually cultivated it. Thus, they thought that it was only a legend and that there was no real legacy in this world. But now, they finally found out that the 9 mysteries really existed. The 9 mysteries, the supreme legacy of Taoism. Rumor has it that even the Tao Gate no longer had the cultivation method of the 9 mysteries. Brat, you deserve to die 1,000 times over. Evil monk Yuan Fa was furious after seeing Lin Feng kill his 3 junior brothers. His gaze towards Lin Feng was filled with murderous intent. Lin Feng sneered, "You're the one who deserves to die. Kill yourself, and you won't have to suffer a painful death. If I were to take action, you'd die a horrible death." The spectators smiled wryly after hearing Lin Feng. Lin Feng was as arrogant as ever, but they didn't think highly of Lin Feng anymore. Many people thought that since Lin Feng was so arrogant, he had the right to be arrogant. However, some felt that Lin Feng was being too arrogant because evil monk Yuan Fa was different from the 3 dead monks. Evil monk Yuan Fa was a true immortal. Yuanji's group couldn't compare to him at all. Although Lin Feng killed the 3 evil monks by manipulating their magic treasures with the Bing mantra recorded in the 9 mysteries, Lin Feng might not be a match for them in a head-on clash. Many people thought so. They felt that Lin Feng was lucky to have killed the 3 evil monks. After all, a divine power like the Bing mantra probably wouldn't work every time. When Lin Feng activated the Bing mantra, it happened to work. What else could it be but luck? However, when facing a terrifying existence like evil monk Yuan Fa, his luck was about to run out. Brat, what kind of genius haven't I seen over the years? However, this is the first time I've seen someone as arrogant as you. Today, I'll let you have a taste of my divine power. Evil monk Yuan Fa shouted coldly. Then a demonic light surged in his body. A large amount of demonic light surged. After the demonic light surged out, a large amount of Buddhist light surged out. The demonic light and the Buddhist light intertwined. He turned into a terrifying half-Buddhist, half-demon creature. This, a dual Buddhist and demonic cultivator, shall be slain by all living beings. The half-Buddhist, half-demon cultivator spoke. His voice was like the sound of death drifting out from hell. The half-Buddhist, half-demon cultivator walked toward Lin Feng, wanting to kill Lin Feng. When the surrounding cultivators sensed the aura emitted from the half-Buddhist, they couldn't help but tremble violently. Everyone's face couldn't help but reveal a terrified expression. The half-Buddhist, half-demon existence was too terrifying. Anyone who sensed the aura of this terrifying existence would feel their soul trembling. The cultivators who originally thought that Lin Feng could defeat evil monk Yuan Fa changed their minds after seeing the half-Buddhist, half-demon existence. They were extremely pessimistic about Lin Feng, thinking that Lin Feng would definitely die. At this moment, Lin Feng made his move. Everyone saw it. Lin Feng jumped up and turned into a dazzling sword light in midair. The sword light streaked across the sky. The half-Buddhist, half-demon creature was instantly split in half. Chapter 49:14. Evil monk Yuan Fa didn't even know how he died. His body fell to the ground, and blood flowed all over the ground. He was a perfected immortal, and he cultivated both Buddhism and devil. He was much stronger than perfected immortals of the same level. However, in the face of Lin Feng's attack, he couldn't even withstand a single blow. Anyone who saw this scene would feel incredulous, right? It was indeed too inconceivable and too shocking. So much so that the surroundings became silent. At this moment, the dazzling sword Qi once again transformed into Lin Feng's original body. Everyone looked at Lin Feng. Everyone's hearts seemed to have been set off by monstrous waves, including Shui Yuexin. She originally thought that she already knew Lin Feng quite well, but only now did she realize that her understanding of Lin Feng was only the tip of the iceberg. Perfected immortals couldn't even withstand a single blow from Lin Feng. The key was that Lin Feng was too young. He was like a character that only appeared in fairy tales. Fellow Taoist, You're really amazing. I'm impressed. I'm Zhang Wentian, the Supreme Elder of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect from the small Western Heavenly region. I wonder if I can be friends with you? At this moment, an old man stepped forward, cupped his fists, and looked at Lin Feng politely. After hearing the identity of this old man, everyone was shocked. There were many forces in the small Western Heavenly region, including many Buddhist forces. However, if one were to ask which force was the most powerful in the small Western Heavenly region, it must be the Western Heaven Immortal Sect. The Western Heaven Immortal Sect was very distant from the Buddhist sects of the Western Heavenly region. This sect had been rooted in the small Western Heavenly region for hundreds of millions of years. It was a force that had been passed down since the ancient times. Its foundation was incomparably powerful, and it belonged to the feudal lords of the region. There weren't many supreme elders of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect. However, although there were few of them, their cultivation bases were top-notch. Those supreme elders were all experts of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect. Some of them were even experts who came out of the divine stones. Therefore, the supreme elders of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect should be experts of the perfected immortal realm. In addition, there was the Western Heaven Immortal Sect behind them. The supreme elders of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect were much more noble than ordinary perfected immortal experts. However, even though he had such a high social status, he was still talking to Lin Feng in a polite and respectful way. However, no one felt that there was anything wrong with Zhang Wentian doing this. For a young expert like Lin Feng, it was hard to imagine just how terrifying he would become in the future. Therefore, if they could make friends with Lin Feng at this time, it might be of great help to them and the forces behind them in the future. Many cultivators wanted to make friends with Lin Feng, but they were not qualified at all. The people who could go up and make friends with Lin Feng were at least at the level of Zhang Wentian. So it's fellow Taoist Zhang. Nice to meet you. I've always liked to make friends. If it were any other time, I would definitely have a few drinks with fellow Taoist Zhang. But now, I have something urgent to deal with my friends, so I can only wait until the next time I meet fellow Taoist Zhang and have a few drinks with you. Lin Feng cupped his fists and said. Lin Feng didn't need to say what his name was. He believed that Zhang Wentian could find out. Well, the next time we meet, we must not go back until we're drunk. Zhang Wentian said with a smile. Some elders, great elders, and disciples of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect couldn't help muttering. The old ancestor of their sect was usually an extremely serious person. When had they ever seen him so happy? Obviously, the old ancestor, who was usually extremely serious and even reserved, was now all smiles because of the excessively young and powerful cultivator. Okay, next time I will definitely get drunk. Lin Feng cupped his fists. Before leaving, he put away the storage rings of evil monk Yuan Fa and others. There were at least 1 billion immortal stones in the storage rings of these 4 people. Although Lin Feng was not short of immortal stones, but he didn't mind having more immortal stones. After putting away those storage rings, Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin left together. After leaving the little Western Paradise City, Lin Feng summoned the 3-headed viper. Now that the 3-headed viper had broken through to the celestial immortal realm, the speed of its breakthrough was extremely fast. Lin Feng was also quite satisfied with the 3-headed viper's cultivation speed. Of course, the 3-headed viper's cultivation speed was so fast. Firstly, it was cultivating in time and space. Secondly, it had obtained a large amount of cultivation resources. No matter what cultivation resources it needed to improve its cultivation, Lin Feng could provide it. This is my mount. Let's ride it to your clan. Lin Feng said. This is your mount, a celestial immortal realm mount. Shui Yuexin was full of shock, but thinking of how powerful Lin Feng was, having a celestial immortal realm mount didn't seem to be a big deal. Lin Feng just smiled at Shui Yuexin's shock. The two of them flew onto the three-headed viper's huge head. The three-headed viper flapped its wings, and its huge body soared into the sky. Around them was the sound of the wind, and below them was an endless mountain forest. Shui Yuexin's body silently leaned on Lin Feng. She noticed that Lin Feng didn't reject her, and she couldn't help but feel happy. Soaring above the 9 heavens, this feeling was simply too comfortable. All the pressure seemed to have been swept away. Shui Yuexin couldn't even remember the last time she felt so relaxed. Lin Feng turned to look at Shui Yuexin. He could even see that snowy white skin of hers. What an enchanting woman. Lin Feng asked, "Who else is in your clan?" "Father, mother, younger brother, 2 uncles, 1 uncle, and their families. There are also some cousins," Shui Yuexin said. Lin Feng said, "Then you have quite a number of people in your clan. Are there any other experts?" Chapter 49:15. Lin Feng's ancestor, Lin Qi, had been through a lot. Lin Feng's ancestor, Lin Qi, had been through a lot. Lin Feng sighed. His ancestor Lin Qi's father fought a bloody battle for the clan, but unfortunately fell in the end. Logically speaking, the undying clan should treat the descendants of those who died for the clan well. However, that wasn't the case. After his ancestor Lin Qi's father died, Lin Qi's talent was ordinary. Thus, Lin Qi had a hard time when he was young, experiencing the fickleness of human nature. When Lin Qi's mother died, she didn't even have the qualifications to be buried with Lin Qi's father due to her humble background. Lin Qi's heart was completely broken, which was why he left the undying clan. Later on, Lin Qi's experience fully proved how reasonable this statement was. One would rather bully an old man than a poor young man. Lin Feng said, "I heard you say that your younger brother is also cultivating in a sect." "That's right," Shui Yuexin said. "My younger brother and a few other cousins are all cultivating in the dragon subduing sect. Although the dragon subduing sect isn't a particularly big sect, it's still quite famous in the lesser Western Horizon region. Moreover, it's hard to enter a sect that's too powerful without connections." "How's their cultivation in the sect?" Lin Feng asked. Shui Yuexin smiled bitterly. "It's all right. However, it's not particularly outstanding. After all, just relying on the cultivation resources in the sect isn't enough. Also, it's hard for my family to provide them with too many resources. Every month, I'll send them a portion of cultivation resources. But even so, it's still a far cry from those disciples who have family backing them up. However, at least they have a place of protection within the dragon subduing sect. If the legendary Doomsday Battle really happens in the future, the dragon subduing sect will be able to protect them." Along the way, Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin chatted about many things. Sometimes, Shui Yuexin would muster up the courage to ask Lin Feng some things. Lin Feng would also try his best to answer her questions. Although Shui Yuexin looked charming, she was actually a very pure person. Because of that, Lin Feng felt more comfortable when he was with Shui Yuexin. He didn't like those scheming women. That would be more tiring. Life should be as comfortable as possible. Half a month later, Lin Feng saw Dragon Qi rising tensively away. Within the Dragon Qi, there seemed to be a huge dragon floating. "That's the dragon subduing sect." "The dragon subduing sect." Shui Yuexin. Lin Feng said, "Lin Feng, since we're passing by the dragon subduing sect, let's go visit them." Hearing Lin Feng say that, Shui Yuexin her Shui Yuexin's Lin Feng took the initiative to ask to visit her brother and the others. Clearly, Lin Feng didn't mind interacting with them. Didn't this mean that she already had a trace of herself in Lin Feng's heart? Shui Yuexin didn't dare to ask for too much. She was already satisfied to have a little bit of status in Lin Feng's heart. If little Hao and the others know that young master is going to visit them, they will definitely be very happy. Shui Yuexin said. Lin Feng smiled. The three-headed viper's speed was extremely fast. It didn't take long for them to arrive outside the dragon subduing sect. After arriving, Lin Feng sent the three-headed viper into the space of time. For the final distance, Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin could fly over together. Lin Feng was a person who kept a low profile. Therefore, if they flew over together, they wouldn't attract too much attention. A power like the dragon subduing sect recruited all kinds of disciples. Therefore, there would be people coming to visit their clan's disciples every day. However, if they wanted to enter the dragon subduing sect to visit their family members, they would have to pay 10 immortal stones. This was the rule. After Lin Feng paid 20 immortal stones, he informed the other party that he was going to visit someone. The dragon subduing sect's disciples would then enter to inform the other disciples. As for Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin, they waited in a cultivator's hall in the dragon subduing sect. Someone brought Lin Feng and the others to the resting hall. Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin waited for a short while before 7 to 8 young people arrived. Sister, the handsome young man in the lead, quickly ran over when he saw Shui Yuexin. He must be Shui Yuexin's younger brother, Shui Zihao. They are here, Shui Yuexin said, and stood up. A group of people ran over. The few young men behind Shui Zihao also greeted Shui Yuexin when they saw her. Those people should be Shui Yuexin's cousins. Among them, 2 beautiful young girls hugged Shui Yuexin's arms, one on the left and one on the right. Their eyes would occasionally look at Lin Feng. One of the young ladies said, Sister, who is that big brother that came with you? Could he be our brother-in-law? This young girl did not deliberately lower her voice, so her words were naturally heard by everyone. Hearing that, Shui Yuexin blushed slightly. The others also looked at Lin Feng. Seeing how handsome Lin Feng was and how Shui Yuexin blushed, they were even more certain that Lin Feng was Shui Yuexin's lover. Shui Yuexin originally wanted to explain, but when she saw that Lin Feng did not explain, she did not say anything. Her heart was filled with sweetness and joy. Hee, so it really is brother-in-law. Another young lady shouted excitedly. She looked at Lin Feng curiously and said, I am Shui Yuexin. What is your name, brother-in-law? I am Ji. Lin Feng said, Brother-in-law, how did you manage to catch up with our sister? I know that our sister has countless suitors, but she has never accepted any of them. Shui Yuexin giggled and asked, Cough, cough. Lin Feng coughed dryly. Lin Feng didn't know what to say because Shui Yuexin, and he didn't have that kind of relationship. Even though he had a good impression of Shui Yuexin, they were still friends. Lin Feng didn't explain because he thought that if he explained, Shui Yuexin would lose face. It would be better if Shui Yuexin explained, but Shui Yuexin didn't explain, which surprised Lin Feng. But since Shui Yuexin didn't explain, Lin Feng didn't need to. Little girl, don't ask about things you shouldn't ask. Chapter 49:16. Shui Zihao said, Let's not stay here any longer. Why don't we go get something to eat? I believe that brother-in-law and sister haven't had a good meal on the way here. The food in the dragon subduing sect's immortal food hall is not bad, but I don't know if it will suit brother-in-law's appetite. Lin Feng said, I can eat anything. I'm not a picky eater. Everyone immediately laughed because they felt that their brother-in-law was a very approachable person. The group of people headed outside. On the way out, Shui Yuexin asked softly, Sister, have you consummated your marriage with brother-in-law? Shui Yueshin also asked curiously, That's right, sister. Have you consummated your marriage or not? The two girls were more curious about this matter. Shui Yueshin's face turned slightly red. She lowered her voice and said, You two little girls, what nonsense are you talking about? Shui Yuewen said, From the looks of it, you haven't consummated your marriage yet. I think brother-in-law is a good person. Sister, you must hold on to him tightly. When a man and woman are together, it's like dry wood meeting fire. You stinking brat, where did you learn all this nonsense from? Shui Yueshin said, angrily. Shui Yuewen said, Sister, don't be angry. I learned all this from romance novels. I feel that some of the words in those novels are very reasonable. After hearing Shui Yuewen's words, Shui Yueshin felt a little helpless. However, an idea soon appeared in her mind. Could she try the method Shui Yuewen mentioned? Perhaps she could confirm her relationship with Lin Feng this way. What am I thinking about? Shui Yueshin's face turned red. She sneaked a glance at Lin Feng and saw that Lin Feng's expression was normal. Only then did she let out a sigh of relief. Lin Feng should not have heard the conversation between the three of them. The dragon-subduing sect's immortal food hall was bustling with people. Other than the disciples and elders of the dragon-subduing sect, there were also many cultivators who came to visit their clan members. They would often come here to have a big meal and try out the food of the immortal food hall. This would give them something to brag about in the future. The surface area of the dragon-subduing sect's immortal food hall was extremely huge. There was a total of 10 levels, and it could accommodate several 100,000 people eating together. Brother-in-law, sister, please wait for a while. I'll go and book a private room. Shui Zihao said. Lin Feng knew that eating in this kind of place was not cheap. If he booked a private room, it would be even more expensive. As for the Shui clan's family background, Lin Feng wasn't willing to let them spend so much money. If they had those immortal stones, they might as well use them for cultivation. Therefore, he said, I think there's still room in the hall. We don't need to book a private room. It's the same if we find a table outside. Shui Zihao looked at his sister Shui Yueshin awkwardly. Shui Yueshin said, Then let's find a place outside. Therefore, the group of people found a place to sit down. Not long after, a paper crane flew over. The paper crane was holding a jade tube in its claws. The paper crane flew to the table where Lin Feng and the others were sitting, and then put down the jade tube. Brother-in-law, use your divine sense to sense it. There are all kinds of delicacies inside. If you fancy a delicacy, use your divine sense to enter it into the jade tube. Then, your order will be successful. Shui Zihao said. Lin Feng clicked his tongue in wonder. The methods of these immortal sects were always somewhat novel. He didn't stand on ceremony. He used his divine sense to enter the jade tube and saw all kinds of dishes. There were probably tens of thousands of dishes. Lin Feng didn't order anything too expensive. He ordered 4 ordinary dishes and then passed the jade tube to Shui Yueshin. Shui Yueshin didn't order anything. She passed the jade tube to Shui Zihao and said, Take a look and see if there's anything you want to eat. Just order. I'll pay the bill later. Shui Zihao said seriously, Sister, this meal is on me. This is the first time we meet brother-in-law. Later, we still have to toast brother-in-law. Shui Yueshin blushed and nodded. Lin Feng said, We don't have to order too much. It's fine as long as there's enough to eat. Otherwise, it'll be a waste. Shui Zihao and the others thought that Lin Feng was very considerate. Besides, he was also very frugal. However, including Lin Feng and Shui Yueshin, there were 10 of them. If they ordered too little, it wouldn't be enough. Hence, Shui Zihao and the rest ordered 10 more dishes and a few jars of wine. The wine was also spiritual wine, although it couldn't be compared to the wine at Lin Feng's place. It had a different flavor to it. Not long later, the wine and dishes were all served. After Shui Zihao and the rest filled their cups with wine, they stood up and toasted Lin Feng. Brother-in-law, as your brothers and sisters, we would like to toast you. We wish brother-in-law and sister a happy and loving relationship. Shui Zihao said. Lin Feng raised his cup and drank it in one gulp. Shui Zihao and the rest also drank the wine in their cups in one gulp. Everyone, quickly sit down and eat, Shui Yuexin said. After everyone sat down, they chatted and laughed. However, halfway through the meal, something unpleasant happened. A group of more than 10 dragon subduing sect disciples walked over. The disciple in the lead was hugging a female disciple. The female disciple was tall and pretty. When the group of people walked past Lin Feng's table, they sneered. The leading disciple curled his lips and said, "A bunch of paupers. Are they even qualified to eat in the immortal food hall?" Zhang Long, don't go too far. Shui Ziyu stood up and said coldly. Shui Ziyu was Shui Yuexin's younger brother. Shui Ziyu, who do you think you are? Are you qualified to talk to me? I'm talking to Shui Zihao. The disciple called Zhang Long sneered. Yiru, you... Shui Yuexin said. She looked at Su Yiru, who was in Zhang Long's embrace. She knew Su Yiru. She grew up with her younger brother, Shui Zihao. The two of them could be considered childhood sweethearts and had joined the dragon subduing sect together. Shui Yuexin also knew that her younger brother Shui Zihao and Su Yiru were lovers. But now, Su Yiru was in the embrace of another man. Brother Long, let's go. Aren't we going to meet a big shot? Let's not waste time. Su Yiru ignored Shui Yuexin and looked at Zhang Long. Zhang Long nodded and looked at the group of people. This young master can't be bothered to talk to a bunch of lowly people like you. Then he hugged Su Yiru and walked in. Zihao, what's going on? Shui Yuexin asked. The other members of the Shui clan didn't look too good. Clearly, many things must have happened in between. Shui Zihao sighed and said, Sister, it's nothing. If couples aren't suitable for each other, they will break up. This kind of thing is very common. Chapter 49:17. Actually, Lin Feng had already guessed the whole story. Su Yiru and Shui Zihao were childhood sweethearts, and they were even lovers. However, after joining the dragon subduing sect, Su Yiru realized that the world she knew was very different from the outside world. There were all kinds of people in the dragon subduing sect. In such a sect, only those with money and power could stand above the rest. Those without money and power were destined to be bullied and humiliated. Before joining the dragon subduing sect, Su Yiru didn't experience such things. Hence, her relationship with Shui Zihao was very pure. However, after joining the dragon subduing sect, all kinds of things and comparisons started to corrode Su Yiru's heart. Shui Zihao, who came from an ordinary family, couldn't give her the kind of life she wanted. Hence, Su Yiru abandoned Shui Zihao and went into the arms of another man. Zhang Long probably knew that Su Yiru was with Shui Zihao in the past, so he naturally didn't treat Shui Zihao well. If he could find a chance to humiliate Shui Zihao, he wouldn't mind doing such a thing. What Lin Feng could guess, Shui Yuexin could too. She felt that it was unfair for her brother, and her heart ached for him. She wanted to say something, but was stopped by Lin Feng. Lin Feng knew what Shui Yuexin wanted to say, but those words shouldn't be said. Lin Feng called, Zihao. Hearing Lin Feng calling him, Shui Zihao hurriedly looked at Lin Feng. Said Lin Feng, smiling, Life is very long. we will experience countless things and meet countless people. We just need to cherish those who cherish us, not those who have abandoned us. Let's not grieve for those who have given up on us. In the future, when you look back on your youth, you will realize that the sadness at that time will make you laugh. Brother-in-law, Shui Zihao wanted to say something, but Lin Feng interrupted him. Lin Feng then pointed at a few female disciples eating at a table not far away and said, "Look at that female disciple wearing a white dress. Isn't she beautiful? Does she have a good figure?" Shui Zihao didn't know what Lin Feng wanted to do, but he still nodded. "Go over and ask her what her name is. Then tell her that I want to hit on you." Lin Feng said, "Pooh." Shui Yuewen, who had just drunk a mouthful of water, suddenly spat it out. This was his brother-in-law. How could he be so valiant? "I don't dare." Shui Zihao said, awkwardly, "You're a man. How dare you say you don't dare? If you were my younger brother, I would have beaten you until half your body was paralyzed after hearing what you said." Lin Feng said. Shui Zihao gritted his teeth, stood up, and walked towards the female disciple. Very quickly, Lin Feng and the rest saw the female disciple splashing the water on Shui Zihao's face. Shui Zihao was like a defeated rooster as he came back with his head drooping. "Brother-in-law, I failed," Shui Zihao said with a sullen face. Lin Feng said, "It's normal for you to fail. That girl is as cold as ice. One look and you can tell that she's not easy to get along with. She's so beautiful, so she must have a lot of suitors. Therefore, when facing those suitors who tried to hit on her, she wouldn't give them a good look. So, it's normal for you to lose out. If you didn't lose out, that would be abnormal." Shui Zihao said with a bitter smile, "Then why did you ask me to go over when you knew that I would end up like this?" "It's because you want to train your courage. When you meet someone who can't get over it, your courage will be smaller. To put it bluntly, you'll feel inferior. Zihao, you need to rely on yourself for this kind of thing. So, when you're free, you can try to hit on the beautiful female disciples. The more you get rejected, the more courageous you'll become, and the more confident you'll be." Lin Feng said. Shui Yuewen said, "Brother-in-law, after being rejected so many times, won't you lose your confidence?" Lin Feng said, "Of course not. After being rejected so many times, your skin will become thicker. Those thick-skinned people have a mysterious self-confidence. Have you ever seen such a person?" Shui Yuewen's eyes lit up. "That's true. Those thick-skinned people have a mysterious self-confidence. I don't even know where their self-confidence comes from. Now that brother-in-law has said it, I finally understand." Shui Yuewen then looked at Shui Zihao and said, "Fourth brother, you can do as brother-in-law says. When your skin becomes thicker, you won't care about the past anymore." "All right, I'll work hard." Shui Zihao clenched his fists and said. At this moment, a voice came from behind. "Is that young Master Ji?" Everyone turned around and saw a dozen cultivators. The one who spoke was a middle-aged cultivator. Shui Zihao and the others thought that these people were here to visit their disciples, so they didn't pay much attention to them. Lin Feng frowned slightly and asked, "Who are you?" "Young Master Ji. My master is the one you met a few days ago." The middle-aged man said carefully. As a disciple, he naturally didn't dare to call his master by his name. Lin Feng also knew who this person's master was. It should be the #1 power in the minor Western Horizon region. The Western Heaven Immortal Sect's Grand Elder Zhang Wentian. Lin Feng had some impression of this person. Although he couldn't be considered particularly strong, he was still a true immortal. Lin Feng said, "So it's fellow Taoist Zhang's disciple. What are you doing here? Could it be that you have disciples cultivating in the dragon-subduing sect?" Lin Feng immediately felt that this shouldn't be the case. The dragon-subduing sect was worlds apart from the Western Heaven Immortal sect. Since this person was Zhang Wentian's disciple, he should be someone with a high position in the Western Heaven Immortal sect. The descendants of his family could naturally cultivate in the Western Heaven Immortal sect. There was no need for them to cultivate in a second-rate power like the dragon-subduing sect. Wouldn't that be a waste of time? The middle-aged man said, "It's a friend of mine. It's going to be his birthday soon, and I just happened to pass by here. So I came to visit him." "So that's the case. Then you can go back to your work." Lin Feng waved his hand. "No rush, no rush. I'll stay here and chat with young master for a while." The middle-aged man said with a smile. Shui Yuexin could roughly guess the middle-aged man's identity, but she didn't say anything. Shui Zihao and the others felt strange. Why was this middle-aged man so careful in front of their brother-in-law? Even if their brother-in-law had a good background, this middle-aged man didn't need to be so reserved, right? However, Shui Zihao and the others were still young, so they didn't think too much about it. Chapter 49:18. Shui Zihao brought over a stool for the middle-aged cultivator and said, "Uncle, please have a seat." The middle-aged cultivator looked at Lin Feng. If Lin Feng didn't say anything, how would he dare to sit down? After seeing this scene, the Shui clan's juniors became excited. It seemed like their brother-in-law was quite extraordinary. At the very least, big sister Yuexin wouldn't have to suffer anymore. Of course, these people definitely wouldn't have thought that the middle-aged man was someone who could make the entire small western sky region tremble with a stomp of his feet. In fact, Lin Feng didn't know what position this guy held in the Western Sky Immortal sect, but it should be quite extraordinary. "Did your master come out to deal with some matters?" Lin Feng looked at the middle-aged man and asked. The middle-aged man sat on the stool and said carefully, "Master didn't come out to deal with matters. He just came out of seclusion not long ago, so he came out to walk around and relax." Lin Feng said, "It seems like Brother Zhang is quite open-minded. Actually, walking around more is also good for your cultivation." Yes, young master's teachings are right. Master also taught us the same." The middle-aged cultivator quickly nodded. When Shui Zihao and the others heard Lin Feng talking to the middle-aged cultivator, and even talking about cultivation, they couldn't help but have a strange feeling in their hearts. As for who this brother Zhang that Lin Feng mentioned was, they didn't know. However, since that brother Zhang was this middle-aged cultivator's master, he should be a very old person, right? Could it be that his brother-in-law and this middle-aged man's master were friends despite the difference in age? So this middle-aged man respected his brother-in-law so much? Everyone thought about it carefully and found that this made sense. After all, in the world of cultivators, there were indeed many friends despite the difference in age. While Lin Feng was chatting with the middle-aged man, Lin Feng suddenly realized something. Zhang Long and Su Yiru had already arrived outside the Supreme Box on the 10th floor. Those lackeys naturally didn't have the qualifications to come up. Su Yiru carefully followed Zhang Long into the private room. She raised her head and peeked inside. Immediately, he saw many important figures. For example, the dragon-subduing sect's peak masters. They were the dragon-subduing sect's grand elders and vice sect heads. Seated in the middle was a middle-aged man with a very imposing aura. That middle-aged man was none other than the dragon-subduing sect's sect master. Although Su Yiru had joined the dragon-subduing sect for quite a few years, she had only seen the portrait of the dragon-subduing sect's sect head. She had never seen the dragon-subduing sect's sect head in person. Obviously, today was the gathering of the upper echelons of the dragon-subduing sect. Ordinary disciples didn't have the qualifications to come over. The reason why Zhang Long was able to come over was because Zhonglong's grandfather was the peak master of the dragon subduing sect's Heaven Gaze peak. His status was only below the sect master, a few vice sect masters, and a few grand elders. They belonged to the upper echelons of the dragon subduing sect. In fact, not to mention ordinary disciples, even ordinary elders were not qualified to enter the box. Su Yiro was even less qualified. But now that she was following Zhonglong, she was able to see these big shots. This greatly satisfied Su Yiro's vanity. Disciple Zhonglong greets the sect master, vice sect master, elders, and peak masters. Zhonglong bowed to everyone. Su Yiro didn't dare to say anything. She only knelt on the ground with Zhonglong. She didn't even dare to raise her head, fearing that she would commit a taboo. However, those big shots didn't pay any attention to Zhonglong and Su Yiro. Zhonglong's grandfather waved his hand, causing Zhonglong to jump in fright. He hurriedly stood up. The old man and Su Yiro walked to the left. There were quite a few young elites there. Vice Sect Master Wang Zhanping said, "Lord Sect Master, this subordinate reckons that it's about time. Should we go and welcome that big shot from the Western Heaven Immortal Sect?" The dragon-subduing sect master was called Qin Fulong. He said, "There's no need to specially send people to welcome him. You all don't understand his character. He hates this kind of complicated ceremony the most. If he sees a large group of us going out to welcome him, he will definitely be extremely unhappy. I heard that that big shot was good friends with Lord Sect Master when they were young. I wonder if the rumors are true?" A grand elder asked curiously. Qin Fulong nodded. "That's right. We were good friends back then. Even after so many years, we still keep in contact." Another grand elder said, "I heard that he has already broken through to the quasi-true immortal realm." "Yes." Qin Fulong smiled and said, "This good friend of mine has extraordinary talent. In addition, his master, Zhang Wentian, is a true immortal realm expert. Therefore, it might not be long before this good friend of mine can break through to the true immortal realm." Many people sucked in a breath of cold air. True immortals were different from each other. For example, those true immortals who sealed themselves in divine stones and then walked out of them were restricted by the laws of heaven and earth. Their potential was far inferior to those cultivators who had broken through to the true immortal realm in this era. If they broke through to the true immortal realm in this era, their future achievements would definitely be limitless. Those juniors couldn't help but feel excited. They knew that the big shot that the upper echelons of the sects were talking about was a big shot from the Western Heaven Immortal Sect. If they could catch the eye of this big shot from the Western Heaven Immortal Sect, they might be able to follow that big shot to cultivate in the Western Heaven Immortal Sect. Compared to the Western Heaven Immortal Sect, the dragon-subduing sect was not even worth mentioning. The foundation of those peak forces was simply unimaginable. Therefore, everyone was looking forward to the arrival of that big shot. Right at this moment, knocking sounds could be heard from outside. "Come in," one of the vice sect masters said. Following that, an elder walked in. That elder bowed to the upper echelons and then quickly walked over to Qin Fulong. Then he whispered something into Qin Fulong's ear. "What? Is what you said true?" Hearing that, Qin Fulong stood up. His face was filled with disbelief. The rest of the people were shocked. Their sect master, who had always been expressionless. Why would he reveal such an expression? Obviously, at this moment, Qin Fulong had somewhat lost his composure. Something big must have happened, or else their sect master would definitely not reveal such an expression. But what exactly had happened? Everyone was unsure. "Bring me to take a look." Qin Fulong looked at the elder beside him and said. That elder hurriedly nodded. He led the way in front. And Qin Fulong didn't have time to explain anything to everyone. Instead, he hurriedly followed behind that elder and headed outside. The other vice sect masters, grand elders, peak masters, and many other disciples were also shocked. Chapter 49:19. Lin Feng poured a cup of wine for the middle-aged cultivator sitting beside him. The middle-aged cultivator was overwhelmed by the favor. He quickly held the wine cup with both hands. Lin Feng said, "You don't have to be so reserved. I've always been casual." "Yes, yes, yes, don't be reserved, don't be reserved," the middle-aged cultivator hurriedly said. He was obviously at a loss when Lin Feng personally poured wine for him. At the same time, he was also very excited. An unimaginably powerful expert. An expert that even his master had to lower his status to make friends with. He actually poured a cup of wine for him. If this young master drank with his master, it should be his master pouring wine for him. But now, he poured a cup of wine for himself. How could the middle-aged cultivator not be excited? Shui Zihao, Shui Yuwen, and the rest couldn't help but find it funny. Wasn't that middle-aged cultivator too reserved in front of his brother-in-law? He probably hadn't seen much of the world, right? His psychological quality seemed to be too weak. Shui Yuwen whispered in Shui Yuexin's ear, "Sister, who is that uncle? He can't be someone from the secular world, right? That's why he's so ignorant. He looks pretty funny right now." Hearing Shui Yuwen's words, Shui Yuexin was almost scared to death. Others didn't know the middle-aged man's identity, but Shui Yuexin did. That middle-aged man's master was the Western Heaven Immortal Sect's Grand Elder, Zhang Wentian. Although Shui Yuexin didn't know the middle-aged man's name, she knew that his master was so terrifying. Presumably, the middle-aged man's identity was also extremely extraordinary. He might even be a big shot who could destroy the dragon-subduing sect with a flick of his finger. That middle-aged man was so reserved beside Lin Feng because he knew how powerful Lin Feng was. And if others dared to casually talk about such an expert, they might be annihilated. "Don't talk nonsense." Shui Yuexin glared fiercely at Shui Yuwen. This was the first time Shui Yuwen saw Shui Yuexin's stern gaze and couldn't help but jump in fright. She shrunk her neck and didn't dare to talk nonsense. The spirit wine of the dragon subduing sect doesn't taste too good. However, there's a unique fragrance to it. Something special must have been added into it. Lin Feng said, the middle-aged man said, "I heard that a type of spirit herb that only grows near the dragon-subduing sect was added. That's why it's so fragrant." Lin Feng nodded and said, "I see. You should try it too." Hearing this, the middle-aged man downed the wine in his cup. The middle-aged man had naturally drunk countless good wines before, but for some reason he felt that there had never been any wine that tasted as good as the one in front of him. At this moment, many people in the hall looked in the direction of the stairs. A group of cultivators came down in a hurry. Oh my God! It's the sect master, the vice sect master, the grand elder, the peak leaders, and the others. They're all the higher-ups of the sect. Why did all the higher-ups come down? Furthermore, he looks like he's in a hurry. Did something big happen? In the hall on the first floor, there were many disciples, deacons, elders, and cultivators who had come to visit their disciples. When those people saw a group of big shots coming down, they were all incomparably shocked. Many people stood up. "Lord Sect Master, over there," the elder who led the way pointed to the table where Lin Feng and the others were at. Qin Fulong looked over and saw his good friend, the vice sect master of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect, Zhou Chuyu, sitting on a stool with half of his, but in talking to a young cultivator. When he saw this scene, there was only one thought in Qin Fulong's mind. How could this be? However, very soon, he knew that young master was definitely not an ordinary person, or else Why would his good friend be so careful? Who exactly was he? Why would he appear in the dragon subduing sect? Many higher-ups of the dragon subduing sect had seen Zhou Chiyu's portrait. Therefore, everyone recognized Zhou Chiyu at once. However, when they saw Zhou Chiyu sitting on a stool with half of his butt and carefully talking to a young cultivator, all the higher-ups of the dragon subduing sect were shocked. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. All sorts of thoughts surged in their minds. Who's that young master? Qin Fulong looked at the disciple beside him, Qin Chong. Qin Chong was his clansman and knew everyone in the sect like the back of his hand. Qin Chong smiled bitterly. I don't know who that person is. He should be a foreign cultivator. However, I have some impression of the disciples sitting on his table. They seem to be from the White Fox clan's branch. However, that branch has long declined. They can't even provide cultivation resources to their disciples. I really don't understand why they would know such a big shot. Qin Fulong couldn't understand this matter either. Therefore, he decided to take things one step at a time. It's the Lord Sect Master and many higher-ups of the sect. Shui Ziyu saw Qin Fulong and the others walking over quickly. He was instantly shocked. When had he ever seen so many higher-ups? Walala! The disciples of the Shui clan all stood up. They lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at those big shots. They were afraid that they would break a taboo. Not long later, Qin Fulong and the others walked over. The vice sect master and the others stopped a dozen meters away. Only Qin Fulong walked over cautiously. Fulong, you're here. Seeing Qin Fulong coming over, Zhou Chiyu greeted him. Fulong, that middle-aged uncle who speaks carefully in front of brother-in-law, actually dares to call the sect master by his name? What's going on? The juniors of the Shui clan looked at each other. They couldn't believe their ears. They even thought that they must have heard wrongly. They had always thought that the middle-aged uncle was someone from the secular world. However, it seemed that he wasn't. That middle-aged uncle actually dared to call their sect master by his name. Chiyu, I'm here. Qin Fulong cupped his fists. Zhou Chiyu hurriedly said, This is my master's good friend, young Master Ji. Qin Fulong was a smart person. He understood the meaning behind his good friend's words. Zhou Chiyu's master was a true immortal expert. In that case, only cultivators of the same level were qualified to be Zhang Wentian's good friend. In other words, this young master, who was a little too young, was a true immortal expert. Wasn't this too inconceivable? Could it be that the descendant of the ancient sacred emperor of the human race had been born? Qin Fulong's heart was already in a state of turmoil. However, he was still someone who had seen some of the world. Qin Fulong cupped his fists and said, Greetings, young Master Ji. Lin Feng nodded and said, Find a place to sit. Hearing that, Qin Fulong moved a stool over, half of his, but sat on the stool and carefully looked at Lin Feng. 7th update, looking for recommendation votes. Monthly votes. Chapter 49-20. There was a mistake in the Shinnong cauldron left behind by Shinnong. It said that the Wei River Lake was in the middle sacred continent, not the heaven realm. However, it was written as the heaven realm by mistake. It has been corrected. Shui Zihao and the others did not dare to look at Qin Fulong. But at this moment, in their hearts, it was as if a monstrous wave had been set off. Their minds even went blank. The sect master of the dragon, subduing sect, high and mighty, the sect master that they had to look up to. Now, they had to be careful with their words in front of their brother-in-law. They only dared to sit on the bench with half of their buttocks. They did not even dare to think about such a thing before. His brother-in-law only looked like a handsome young master. Moreover, he was very approachable. Shui Zihao and Shui Yuewen had guessed that their brother-in-law might have a good family background. But now they knew. Their guesses, they were very wrong. Their brother-in-law was definitely an unimaginable existence. Or else, how could he make those big shots act so cautiously? Who is that young master? I don't know him. Even the sect master has to be careful. His identity must be so big that it can scare people to death. Many disciples were discussing. Many beautiful female disciples could not tear their eyes away from Lin Feng. Young, handsome, unimaginable mysterious identity. Such a man was simply the Prince Charming in their hearts. You all have a seat too, Lin Feng said. Shui Zihao and the others came back to their senses and sat down. However, they seemed to be a little cautious. After all, two big shots were sitting there. Are these disciples the young master's relatives? Qin Fulong asked carefully. Brother Ji is our brother-in-law, Shui Yuewen said. Then she realized that she had been too presumptuous and was so frightened that her face turned pale. However, seeing that these big shots had no intention of blaming her, she heaved a sigh of relief. So that's how it is. I can see that all of you are very talented. I have only accepted 3 disciples so far. If all of you wish to take me as your master, I wonder if I can have the honor of accepting a few of you as my disciples? Sect master, you want to take us as disciples? Shui Yuewen suddenly exclaimed. They didn't even have the qualifications to be apprenticed to ordinary elders. Now, the high and mighty sect leader actually wanted to take them as disciples. Moreover, when the high and mighty sect master spoke, he didn't even refer to himself as this seat. Instead, he used I to refer to himself, taking them in as disciples, and asking him if he had the honor to do so. Wasn't this too unbelievable? Wasn't happiness coming too suddenly? The surrounding disciples who were watching the show all looked at the Shui clan members with envy and jealousy in their eyes. They knew that the siblings from the Shui family were about to strike it rich. Shui, Zihao, and the others were very excited. They wanted to agree. At this time, Zhou Qiyu said, Brother Qin, actually, I was just about to talk to young Master Ji about this matter. Although our Western Heaven immortal sect isn't considered a major force, we're still considered one of the top forces in the Little Western Heaven region. Therefore, our resources are better than the dragon subduing sect. Moreover, I'm the vice sect master of the Western Heaven immortal sect, and I haven't accepted any disciples yet. Therefore, I want to bring these youngsters to the Western Heaven immortal sect to cultivate. When Qin Fulong heard Zhou Qiyu, he smiled wryly. He knew that Zhou Qiyu wanted to curry favor with Lin Feng. That was why he had said that. Wasn't he also trying to curry favor with Lin Feng? However, when Zhou Qiyu said those words, Qin Fulong knew that he didn't have much of a chance. Qin Fulong didn't blame Zhou Qiyu. After all, with Lin Feng's ability and connections, wasn't it easy for him to arrange for Shui Zihao and the others? Even if they didn't go to the Western Heaven Immortal sect, they probably wouldn't stay in the dragon subduing sect. What? This middle-aged man is the vice sect master of the Western Heaven Immortal sect, the #1 force in the Little Western Heaven region? Shui Zihao, Shui Yuewen, and the others were dumbfounded. They didn't expect that this middle-aged man who was so reserved in front of their brother-in-law was actually the vice sect master of the Western Heaven Immortal sect. That was their brother-in-law. Who exactly was he? The surrounding disciples of the dragon subduing sect were also dumbfounded. Who exactly is that young master? That was the question in everyone's mind. They were extremely curious about Lin Feng's identity, especially the female disciples. They wanted nothing more than to offer themselves to him immediately. What are you guys thinking? Lin Feng looked at Shui Zihao and the others. We want to join the Western Heaven Immortal Sect. Shui Zihao said, joining the Western Heaven Immortal Sect was the dream of every cultivator in the Little Western Heaven region. Moreover, it was to become the disciple of the vice sect master of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect. Ha 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 ha. Good, good, good. When I return to the Western Heaven Immortal Sect, you guys can follow me to report to the sect, Zhou Qiu said with a smile. When the others saw that the siblings of the Shui clan had become the disciples of the vice sect master of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect, they were filled with envy. This was especially so for Su Yiru. Her eyes turned red. Su Yiru wanted to be above everyone else. Therefore, she abandoned Shui Zihao, who was born ordinary. Then, she turned around and entered Zhang Long's embrace. But now, Shui Zihao had become the disciple of the vice sect master of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect, Zhou Chuyu. Moreover, Shui Zihao had a terrifying identity that made the sect master, Qin Fulong, and the vice sect master of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect, Zhou Chuyu, have to be careful when talking to him. One could imagine, from now on, Shui Zihao would have a meteoric rise. Zhang Long was not even worth mentioning when compared to Shui Zihao. Not to mention Zhang Long, in the future, perhaps Shui Zihao would not even care about the dragon subduing sect. Thinking that she had abandoned Shui Zihao and was now a stranger to him, Su Yiru immediately regretted it. If she was still by Shui Zihao's side, didn't that mean that she could also become the disciple of the vice sect master of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect, Zhou Chuyu? Su Yiru believed that if Shui Zihao put in a good word for her, Zhou Chuyu would definitely accept her as a disciple. However, all of this was just wishful thinking. Yu Eshin and I still have some things to deal with, so we won't stay here for long. As for Zaheo and the rest, pack up your luggage and then go to the Western Heaven Immortal Sect with Zhou Qiu. As for the matter of you going to the Western Heaven Immortal Sect to cultivate, we will tell your families, Lin Feng said. Shui Zihao and the others hurriedly nodded. Now, they still felt that it was unreal. They couldn't even believe that they had become the disciples of the vice sect master of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect, Zhou Chuyu. But all of this was real. Lin Feng got up and walked outside. Chapter 49:21. Very soon, a group of people arrived outside. Shui Zaheo said, "Brother-in-law, sister, be careful on the road." Lin Feng nodded. Shui Yueshin said, "All of you must cultivate well in the future. Do not slack off." Shui Zaheo and the rest knew that this opportunity was not easy to come by. Naturally, they did not dare to slack off. If they slacked off, then they would be letting down their brother-in-law's help, their sister's expectations, and their own lives. Lin Feng waved his hand, and the three-headed viper flew out. The huge body coiled on the ground as its cold eyes looked around. Celestial Immortal Level Mount. After seeing the three-headed viper, many people could not help but exclaim. Such a high level mount was naturally very rare. Now, everyone was even more curious about Lin Feng's identity. It was already inconceivable for big shots like Zhou Chuyu and Qin Fuqian to be so respectful towards him. Even his mount was at the celestial immortal level. His identity, once it was revealed, it would definitely shock the world. Lin Feng and Shui Yueshin flew to the head of the three-headed viper, following which the three-headed viper let out a low roar. Then it flapped its wings, and its huge body soared into the sky and quickly flew away. Only when the three-headed viper's figure had completely disappeared did everyone regain their senses. "Chiyu, let's sit inside." Qin Fulong looked at Zhou Chiyu and said he was now extremely envious of Zhou Chiyu. Now that Zhou Chiyu had become the master of Shui Zaheo and the rest, And Lin Feng was the brother-in-law of Shui Zihao and the rest. From now on, Zhou Chuyu and Lin Feng could be considered to be on good terms. Although Qin Fulong did not know Lin Feng's true identity. So what? Although he did not know Lin Feng's true identity, he was sure that Lin Feng was an incomparably terrifying existence. Moreover, he was still so young. It was hard to imagine how much he would grow in the future. After forming a relationship with Lin Feng, if Lin Feng extended a helping hand during the Doomsday Battle, they might be able to survive. Zhou Qiyu said, "Dragon subduing. Originally, I wanted to stay here for a few days, but now that I've accepted Zihao and the others, I want to take them back to the sect as soon as possible and let them undergo the immortal baptism. You know, the sooner the immortal baptism of our Western Heaven Immortal sect, the better, so we can't delay it any longer." Many people's eyes lit up after hearing the words, immortal baptism, which cultivator in the minor Western Heavenly region had never heard of the immortal baptism. It was said that cultivators who had undergone the immortal bath's baptism would have their talents greatly increased. It was also said that some of the potential within their bodies would be unlocked. Even a cultivation trash could become a cultivation genius after going through the immortal bath. However, the cost of the immortal bath was extremely high. Many genius disciples of the Western Heaven Immortal sect had to go through numerous competitions before they were qualified to undergo the immortal bath. However, Shui Zihao's group hadn't even joined the Western Heaven Immortal sect yet, but they had already reserved a spot for the immortal bath. Who wouldn't be envious of this? Everyone knew that all of this was because Shui Zihao's group had an awesome brother-in-law. Many elders were extremely regretful. If they had accepted Shui Zihao's group as disciples back then, perhaps their status would have risen as well. However, it was too late to think about this now. "Very well, let's meet again in the future," Qin Fulong said. Zhou Qiyu took out a white jade box and handed it over to Qin Fulong, saying, "Fulong, I came here in a hurry this time, so I didn't prepare anything too precious. This is an immortal pill that my master gave me before. It is very helpful in comprehending the grand Tao of true immortality. This immortal pill is my congratulatory gift to you." Qin Fulong's eyes suddenly lit up. He accepted the white jade box and said, "Thank you for your generous gift, Qiyu. We're brothers. There's no need to be so polite," Zhou Qiyu said with a smile. Then he looked at Shui Zihao and the others and said, "Zihao, you guys go and pack your things now. Master will wait for you here. When you come back, we'll set off for the Western Heaven Immortal sect." Shui Zihao said, reporting to Master, "We've basically brought everything with us. We can leave now." "In that case, let's go now," Zhou Qiyu said, and was about to leave. At this time, Su Yiru ran out of the crowd. She grabbed Shui Zihao and said, "Zihao, take me with you to the Western Heaven Immortal sect. I beg you to take me with you to the Western Heaven Immortal sect." Shui Zihao's expression was slightly ugly. He didn't say anything to Su Yiru. When Su Yiru left without hesitation, they were already strangers. "Su Yiru, don't you have any shame? In the past, you despised my fourth brother's poor background and couldn't give you the material life you wanted, so you betrayed him and followed Zhonglong. Now that my fourth brother has been accepted as a disciple by Master and has joined the Western Heaven Immortal sect, you're trying to get close to him. Don't you find yourself disgusting? I find you disgusting. Quickly take your hand away. Don't grab my fourth brother, lest you dirty his clothes." Shui Yuwen had a fiery personality. She was usually very impetuous. While scolding Su Yiru, she stretched out her hand to grab Su Yiru, wanting her to let go of Shui Zihao. Many people knew about this matter, so when they saw Su Yiru pestering Shui Zihao, they couldn't help but talk about it. They looked at Su Yiru with disdain. "Zihao, I love you. We grew up together, and I've always loved you deeply. I was wrong in the past. Can you give me another chance? Take me with you. From now on, I will love you wholeheartedly. I won't be fickle-minded anymore. After Su Yiru was pulled away, she was still struggling to pounce on Shui Zihao. Your love. It's cheap. It's dirty. Shui Zihao looked at Su Yiru with indifference. Originally, Shui Zihao was immersed in pain. Now, after seeing Su Yiru's crazy state, Shui Zihao completely walked out of his sadness. A man. Why worry about not having a wife? Why be sad for a woman who didn't know how to behave? Doing that was really stupid. No, Zihao, I know you still love me. You're just angry with me. So, you deliberately said those words to anger me. Zihao, I will change. I will love you wholeheartedly. Please give me another chance. I beg you, give me another chance. Sui Ran shouted. Master, let's go. Shui Zihao ignored Su Yiru and looked at Zhou Chuyu. Chapter 49:22. Don't leave me behind. Don't leave me behind. Zihao, why are you so cruel to me? Why are you doing this to me? I love you so much, but you hurt me like this. Su Yiru cried, as though she was heartbroken. Those who didn't know would think that Shui Zihao had done something outrageous to her. Zhang Long's expression was extremely ugly. Now, everyone knew that Su Yiru was his woman, and Su Yiru did such a thing. She made him lose all his face. Who is this woman? Since when did our dragon-subduing sect have such an unruly person? Qin Fulong's expression was extremely ugly. Su Yiru had made a fool of herself just now. Yet his good friend Zhou Chuyu was still here. Wasn't she making a fool of herself? Su Yiru didn't just embarrass herself. She also embarrassed the dragon-subduing sect and Qin Fulong. Zhang Long, you disgraceful thing. Hurry up and drag her away. Zhang Long's grandfather's expression changed slightly as he glared at Zhang Long. Zhang Long saw that the sect master was angry and was so frightened that his body trembled. He quickly dragged Su Yiru away. Humph! Qin Fulong flung his sleeves and soared into the sky, flying toward his palace. The other vice sect masters, grand elders, and peak masters also left with him. As for the ordinary disciples, attendants, and elders, they started discussing today's matter. It brought them too much shock. It was enough for them to discuss for a long time. In the afternoon of the same day, the sect master of the dragon-subduing sect, Qin Fulong, personally issued a few orders. First, Su Yiru, who ruined the reputation of the dragon-subduing sect, was to be expelled. Second, Zhang Long, who often bullied ordinary disciples, was to be thrown into prison for life. Third, Zhang Long's grandfather, Zhang Wei, was to be removed from the position of Peak Master of Heaven's Gaze Peak. Soon, Qin Fulong's orders were issued. After knowing the contents of the orders, the dragon-subduing sect was in an uproar. Obviously, Qin Fulong made these decisions because of Lin Feng. He had done that to show Lin Feng what he had done. Even if Lin Feng wasn't here, Qin Fulong knew that the news would reach Lin Feng. Many people naturally understood Qin Fulong's motive for doing so. As for what happened in the dragon-subduing sect, Lin Feng didn't know yet. At that moment, Lin Feng was lying down on the gigantic head of the three-headed viper, looking extremely relaxed. Shui Yuexin sat beside Lin Feng, smelling the alluring fragrance of Shui Yuexin's body. It was really a pleasure. Thank you for your help today. Because of this, Zihao and the others were able to join a large sect like the Western Heaven Immortal sect. Moreover, Zihao and the others were able to become disciples of the Western Heaven Immortal sect's vice sect leader. In the future, Zihao and the others would definitely have a bright future. Xin will definitely remember young master's great kindness in her heart. No matter what you ask me to do, I will do it. Shui Yuexin looked at Lin Feng and said gratefully. Lin Feng said with a smile, "Are you really willing to do anything for me?" Shui Yuexin looked into Lin Feng's eyes. Her face instantly turned red. Her heart couldn't help but beat violently. Shui Yuexin felt that Lin Feng's gaze was extremely passionate when he looked at her. That gaze caused Shui Yuexin's heart to be in a mess. However, Shui Yuexin was vaguely looking forward to something. She said with a red face, "You Xian always keeps my words." Lin Feng said, "All right then, come over and help me massage it. I feel like my body is getting rusty recently." Hearing that, Shui Yuexin half knelt beside Lin Feng. Then she stretched out her slender hands and started massaging Lin Feng. Lin Feng closed his eyes and slowly enjoyed it. 5 days later, they arrived at Black Mountain City. The reason why Black Mountain City was called Black Mountain City was because there was a pitch-black mountain 100 li northwest of the city. Hence, Black Mountain City was named after it. The White Fox tribe had always been located in Black Mountain City. Other than the White Fox tribe, there were a few other large and small clans in Black Mountain City. Although Black Mountain City wasn't considered a particularly powerful ancient city, there were a few powerful clans here. Hence, the overall strength of Black Mountain City was quite good. Outside Black Mountain City, Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin flew down from the head of the three-headed viper. Then, Lin Feng kept the three-headed viper into the temporal space. Then, Lin Feng followed Shui Yuexin into Black Mountain City. In Black Mountain City, there were many people coming and going. It was very lively. Because the city was close to the ancient forest of the Little Western Paradise, many cultivators who went in and out of the ancient forest settled down in Black Mountain City. After Lin Feng and Shui Yuexin entered Black Mountain City, they immediately attracted many people's attention. Many people couldn't help but praise them secretly. What a pair of golden boy and jade girl. After an hour, Shui Yuexin brought Lin Feng to their residence. It was a courtyard near the northwest corner. The courtyard wasn't very big, but it was relatively clean. There were a few children who looked around 7 or 8 years old playing at the entrance. After seeing Shui Yuexin return, the children immediately ran inside excitedly. As they ran, they shouted loudly, "Anne is back! Anne is back!" After hearing the children's shouts, many people came out one after another. The first to come out were a few men and women who looked to be in their 30s. "Fifth sister, you're back. You must be tired. Quickly go in and rest." 2 ladies came forward and said they were not from the White Fox tribe. Lin Feng guessed that they were Shui Yuexin's sister-in-law. As expected, Shui Yuexin looked at the 2 ladies and called out, "Sister-in-law." Then she looked at a few young men and called out, "Elder brother." Those young men were probably Shui Yuexin's cousins. "Yuexin, this brother is—" One of them looked at Lin Feng and asked curiously. Lin Feng said, "My name is Ji, and I'm Yuexin's lover." Hearing that, Shui Yuexin's cousins and 2 sisters-in-law were shocked. This was because they had never heard of Shui Yuexin dating anyone. Shui Yuexin didn't mention it when she came back last time. However, the last time she came back was 2 years ago, so it was normal for her to find someone she liked in these 2 years. That's good. Now that Yuexin has a lover, does the main tribe still want to separate Brother Ji and Yuexin? Chapter 49-23. The rest of the Shui family came out too. Shui Yuexin's uncle, 2 uncles, aunts and aunts were there. Her father and mother were there as well. Shui Yuexin's father was in a wheelchair. His meridians had been severed for too long, and both his legs were crippled. Her mother pushed the wheelchair out. It could be seen that Shui Yuexin's mother was definitely a beauty when she was young. Even now, she was still charming. However, life was too difficult, leaving many marks of time on her face, making her look much older than her actual age. She was also much more tired. Father! Mother! Shui Yueshin hurried forward when she saw her parents coming out. Sigh. Shui Yueshin's father sighed. He seemed to have seen his daughter's tragic fate in the future. However, he could not go against it. If he did not agree with the main bloodline might wipe out their bloodline. This kind of thing was too common. It was just an abandoned side bloodline. It was nothing to the main bloodline. As parents, how could they not want their children to be well? However, sometimes the reality was extremely cruel. Shui Yueshin's mother shed tears when she saw her daughter. These days, she had been on tenterhooks after knowing the main bloodline's decision. She was worried about her daughter. Uncles, aunts. Shui Yueshin greeted everyone in turn. Her uncle, aunts, uncles, and aunts also nodded their heads. She wanted to say something like, "It's good that you're back." However, when she thought that she might jump into a fire pit when she came back, she could not bring herself to say it. This is... Shui Yueshin's uncle looked at Lin Feng in surprise. In the past, Shui Yueshin was always alone when she came home. Now, she actually brought a young man with her. As for this young man, he was handsome, confident, and had an extraordinary bearing. People could not help but like him. Lin Feng introduced himself. "My name is Ji. I'm Yueshin's lover." Upon hearing that, Shui Yueshin's parents, aunts, uncles, and aunts were shocked. They did not know that Shui Yueshin had found a partner outside. Shui Yueshin blushed and said, "I brought him along. If the main bloodline's people come, I'll negotiate with them." No one knows a daughter better than her parents. When Shui Yueshin's parents saw the way she looked at Lin Feng, they knew that their daughter really liked Lin Feng. Shui Yueshin's father said, "Leave it to me. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will not let the people from the main bloodline push you into the fire pit." His daughter had found happiness. This was the happiest thing for his father. The others nodded in agreement. If the main branch really didn't give up and wanted to forcibly separate Lin Feng and Shui Yueshin, then, in that case, they definitely wouldn't sit still and wait for death. Hearing her father's words, Shui Yueshin burst into tears. Suddenly, a clamor of voices rang out from outside. Next, a group of tens of cultivators rushed in. The leader was a cultivator who looked to be in his 30s. His name was Shui Moran. He was a cultivator of the main branch and was of the same generation as Shui Yueshin's father and uncle. "Eldest niece, you're finally back. Eldest niece Yueshin, follow us to the main bloodline. The people from the Marriage Alliance family have been here for 3 days. It's time for you to meet your future in-laws." Shui Moran said. Shui Yueshin's father said, "Yueshin already has a lover. So please go back and tell the higher-ups of the main bloodline that the marriage alliance between Yueshin and the other party will not happen. So, if the main bloodline wants to have a marriage alliance with the other party, please find someone else." Shui Moran sneered and said, "She's been single all this time. She just said that she wants to have a marriage alliance. And she found a lover? Do you think the people from the main bloodline are so easily deceived? Not to mention that she doesn't have a lover. Even if she does, so what? The other party has seen Shui Yueshin's portrait and likes Shui Yueshin very much. So, even if we have to break them up, we won't hesitate. Don't go overboard." Shui Yueshin's father was livid. The people from the main bloodline were too unreasonable. They didn't treat them as humans at all. Shui Moran said, "Overboard? That's ridiculous. Have you forgotten your identity? As a cultivator from the branch bloodline, it's only right for you to give up everything for the main bloodline." Moreover, Shui Yuexin's marriage alliance is also beneficial to you. She can become the wife of an aristocratic family in the future, and you will be given many cultivation resources. I heard that you sent Shui Zihao and the others to the dragon subduing sect to cultivate. I don't think you can provide them with cultivation resources, right? Without cultivation resources, it's hard to raise one's cultivation level. As long as Shui Yuexin marries over, you can use the cultivation resources to nurture Shui Zihao and the others. At this time, Shui Yuexin said coldly, you don't have to worry about the cultivation of Shui Zihao and the others. Now, they have joined the Western Heaven Immortal sect and are disciples of the Western Heaven Immortal sect's deputy sect leader, Zhou Chuyu. Hearing Shui Yuexin's words, everyone was stunned. Ha 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 ha! How laughable! How laughable! Even if you make up some nonsense. He should have said something more reliable, instead of saying something completely out of place. Shui Moran looked at Shui Yuexin sarcastically. In fact, Shui Moran wasn't the only one who didn't believe it. Even Shui Yuexin's parents, uncles, aunts, brothers, and sisters-in-law didn't believe it. Western Heaven Immortal sect. What kind of power was that? Even the main bloodline of the White Fox clan wasn't considered a powerful force in front of the Western Heaven Immortal sect. Joining the Western Heaven Immortal sect sounded unbelievable, let alone becoming the disciple of the Western Heaven Immortal sect's deputy sect leader, Zhou Chuyu, Shui Yuexin's father, and the others didn't know why Shui Yuexin would say such ridiculous things, but they didn't refute it. Shui Yuexin said, some things don't need to be explained because there's no need to. Shui Moran sneered and said, I don't want to listen to your nonsense anymore. Now follow us. Don't force us to fight. After Shui Moran said that, the people around him slowly closed in. Seeing that Shui Moran seemed to want to fight, Shui Yuexin's family members' faces turned ugly. However, they had already made up their minds. Even if they had to fight to the death, they wouldn't give in. At this time, Lin Feng, who had been silent all this while, said, Yuexin won't be a tool for the family's benefit. Now you can leave. You're not welcome here. Chapter 49-24. Shui Yuexin's family saw Lin Feng arguing with Shui Moran and the others. At first, they were worried that Lin Feng would be at a disadvantage. But in the next moment, they saw an unbelievable scene. Lin Feng walked toward Shui Moran as soon as Shui Moran finished his words. Lin Feng arrived in front of Shui Moran and grabbed him. Kid, are you courting death? Shui Moran sneered and jumped out, slapping at Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng dispersed his palm in an instant. Then, Lin Feng grabbed Shui Moran's head with one hand and used his other hand to throw Shui Moran's body into the air. Lin Feng used Shui Moran as if he were a wolf's tooth club. Lin Feng swung him around like a tiger. Bang! 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 Along with the sound of the violent collision, there was a loud bang. The cultivators that Shui Moran brought along were all swept away. One by one, they fell outside the courtyard. Get out of here, too. Then, Lin Feng threw Shui Moran out as well. There was a loud thud. Shui Moran fell to the ground. He came into close contact with the ground, and all of his teeth were knocked out. Ah! Shui Moran roared in anger. To him, what happened just now was a great humiliation. He was thrown out of the courtyard. This was too shameful. Shui Moran was going crazy. His eyes were filled with coldness. He wanted to rush into the courtyard and take revenge on Lin Feng. However, thinking of how powerful Lin Feng was, how would he dare to find trouble with Lin Feng? He hurriedly led a group of people away with their tails between their legs. Shui Yuexin's family members were dumbfounded by what had just happened. Shui Mo Ran was a human celestial cultivator. He was extremely strong, but Lin Feng had managed to defeat him. Everybody had seen what had happened a moment before. Lin Feng was too cruel and violent. However, Shui Yuexin's family members felt relieved. This violent son-in-law, this gave them a feeling of exaltation and satisfaction. However, after that, Shui Yuexin's family members started to worry. After all, the main branch was powerful and had a heavenly immortal expert. They were naturally worried that Lin Feng would be at a disadvantage. Shui Yuexin's father said, Xian, take young friend Ji and leave Blackstone City as soon as possible. If you are late, you might not be able to leave. We will leave Blackstone City as soon as possible. You don't have to worry about our safety. Shui Yuexin naturally knew what her father was worried about. Shui Yuexin said, Father, you don't have to worry. Young master is very powerful. Moreover, it's all thanks to you that Zi Hao and the others were able to become disciples of Zhou Chuyu, the deputy sect leader of the Western Heaven Celestial Sect. What? The group was stunned. Shui Yuexin had indeed mentioned this before. However, they did not dare to believe it. What kind of person was the Western Heaven Immortal Sect's vice sect leader? He was high and mighty like a god. How could people of their status come into contact with him? As for Shui Zihao and the rest being the disciples of the Western Heaven Immortal Sect's vice sect leader, they did not dare to think about it. Even in their dreams, they did not dare to think about it. However, Shui Yuexin mentioned this again. Moreover, she said it clearly and logically. It did not seem fake. If it was true, didn't that mean their family's luck was about to change? They would no longer be bullied by others? Lin Feng said, Zihao, Ziyu, Yuewen, and the rest of the 8 have already become Zhou Chuyu's disciples. The Western Heaven Immortal Sect is different from the Dragon Subduing Sect. That place has more resources for its disciples. Moreover, I have some connections with Zhou Chuyu. I'm sure Zhou Chuyu will teach them well. Therefore, you don't have to worry about them. Hearing Lin Feng's words, Shui Yuexin's family members could confirm the authenticity of this matter. These people were all extremely excited. They knew what it meant for Shui Zihao and the rest to become Zhou Chuyu's disciples. Now, they were being humiliated and bullied by the people from the main sect. This was because they were not strong enough. If Shui Zihao and the rest became strong in the future, would the people from the main sect still dare to do this? When the time came, the people from the main sect would have to be respectful in front of them. Young friend, thank you. You are our family's great benefactor. Shui Yuexin's family members were so emotional that they wanted to bow to Lin Feng. Even Shui Yuexin's father struggled to get down from his wheelchair to bow to Lin Feng. Lin Feng quickly said, Elders, please don't be so courteous. With my relationship with Yuexin, this is what I should do. If all of you bow to me, it would be too much for this junior. Hearing Lin Feng's words, Shui Yuexin's elders gave up. Shui Yuexin's mother looked at Lin Feng more and more like a mother-in-law looking at her son-in-law. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. Young Master Ji, is that you? At this moment, a voice came from outside. Lin Feng looked outside and saw many cultivators gathered outside to watch the commotion. Many of them were pointing and talking. The one who spoke was a middle-aged cultivator. The middle-aged cultivator was looking inside. Lin Feng did not know this person. However, this person knew Lin Feng. Come in and talk. Lin Feng waved his hand and said. Hearing this, the middle-aged cultivator immediately ran over. He then bowed to Lin Feng. Who are you? Lin Feng glanced at the middle-aged man and asked, I am Yun Zhongtian, from Blazing Island. Greetings to young Master Ji. The middle-aged man bowed to Lin Feng. Blazing Island? Yun Zhongtian? I've never heard of him. Lin Feng said, pursing his lips. Hearing Lin Feng's words, the middle-aged man did not feel awkward. He said, young Master Ji is very busy every day. Naturally, you would not have heard of a nobody like me. I just saw young Master Ji here by chance, so I took the liberty to come and greet young Master Ji. Oh, replied Lin Feng. Then he asked, you said you were from the Scorching Island? Why are you here? Yun Zhongtian lowered his voice and said, young Master Ji, I have obtained an ancient map. It seems to be related to Black Rock Mountain, so I came to investigate. Now that I see young Master Ji here, I am willing to offer the ancient map to young Master Ji